Blake Bevan. Blake Bevan had a decent 2011 season. He had quality starts. 2012 didn't really do much, and then he was just disappeared after that. And looks like we got the Silver Man. Here's here. Let's greet him in. Very eventful trade deadline, huh? Nothing much is.
Yeah, buddy. How are you?
Oh, just surviving in the last 2.5 hours. Luckily, I had the Jay Trident podcast to stall time for 30 minutes. But when I was waiting for you, I was reminiscing all the past trades from 91. And boy.
Go ahead and go ahead. Okay, yeah, because when I came in, you were talking about a specific trade. Why don't you go ahead and just fill me in on the trade you were talking about?
It was 2010, so I was going through all the years after 91. And then 2010 was when they traded away Justin Smoke. No, they traded away Cliff Lee to get Justin Smoke, which, considering that Lee, I think, was on his last year of his contract, I would still do that trade over and over again because they were selling at that point. It was just, if only the Mariners made good use of Justin Smoke.
You know what the funniest thing is that now, so being close to certain people who were connected with certain front offices. I had known Justin Smoke a year prior as he was making his way through the Texas organization. And the funny thing about it was there was no doubt that, Justin Smoke had a very big bat. And the what people liked was the fact that he was a switch hitter. That was a very big thing. And, he had good fastball command from both sides of the plate. The biggest problem with Justin Smoke, and I had known this prior to him being traded to Seattle, was that he had a massive hole in his swing. And the Texas Rangers had purposely brought up Justin Smoke to the big league level earlier that season in 2010 to showcase him. And they instinctively put him in games that featured heavy fastball pitching. And so there were games where Justin Smoke looked like a world beater. And as the early season was progressive, the Rangers had targeted Cliff Lee from the Mariners. And they were hoping that the Mariners were going to bite on Justin Smoke. And everybody understood that Zarenzik was basically a rookie GM who really fell in love with the long ball. He was really just enamored with the long ball. And so Texas was figuring that they can get one over on Seattle for Cliff Lee. And so it wasn't a surprise when that news came down that they had traded for Blake Bevan, Justin Smoke, and Josh Lukey. And I remember thinking to myself, I can't believe that Zarenzik bit. Because reality was that he needed at least another year in AAA to work through some of his issues. He had a massive hole in his swing. He couldn't catch up with off-speed pitches and was routinely fooled with splitters down in the dirt away. You know what I mean? He had trouble handling off-speed pitches. And so if he wasn't getting fastball, it was going to be a problem. And sure enough, when he came over to Seattle, instead of keeping him down in the minors like they needed to for the rest of the season and probably for the start of 2011, yeah, he shouldn't have came up until the All-Star break 2011. And they should have given him an extra 500 at-bats in Tacoma just to let him work through some of his issues before being called up. And the Mariners played him right away, and his inexperience and his problems at the plate were evident right from the beginning. And what's incredible is that the Mariners had other offers for Cliff Lee.
What were the other offers?
They had an offer from the Detroit Tigers that would have given the Mariners their top prospect plus two players off their 25-man roster at the time. I have to go back, but they had a very good offer from the Detroit Tigers that would have plugged two of their holes on their roster that year. And one of them was an outfielder, and the other one was an infielder. And the third was going to be Detroit's top prospect at the time. And you can go back to the 2010 Detroit Tigers top prospect list, and you can understand what the Mariners were going to get back. But Jack Sorensic, who never should have held that position to begin with in the first place, fell in love with the fact that Justin Smoak was a switch hitting, power hitting first baseman. And when you look at his game, he really wasn't. He wasn't a complete player.
So the offer could have been like Casper Wells, Austin Jackson. So I guess he could have gotten prime Austin Jackson at that point. Casey Crosby, Jacob Turner.
Who was their starting infield in 2010? Detroit starting infield in 2010.
Is that who they also offered?
Yeah, it was their top prospect and an outfielder off their 25-man roster and an infield off their 25-man roster.
It would have been Ramon Santiago.
Well, I mean, if you think about, they also had an offer from the Atlanta Braves too.
Do you have any intel what happened in 2003? Because I remembered that the Mariners there was rumors that maybe they were going to get Aaron Boone to pair with Brett Boone, and then the Yankees swooped in and got him.
It's more like it was like potentially Johnny Peralta, Johnny Damon, and of course this was like the end of but Johnny Damon still had a good year in
Detroit
with the Tiger. Yeah, he had a pretty solid year. And it was like Johnny Peralta, Johnny Damon, and then whoever their top prospect was that year. Anyway, so 2003. Repeat your question again.
Do you know what went down in that Aaron Boone trade to the Yankees? Like, because I remember maybe the Mariners there were hopes of the Mariners getting him, and then they completely failed miserably. And I think Aaron Boone may have wanted to play with his brother. Because imagine a double play play duo.
As a matter of fact, so they did. The Mariners had very strong. They had very strong, a very strong want for him, and the rumor is that he was, I believe, in 2003 he had signed a. So this was before he really hit free agency, and he was still kind of in arbitration. I believe, if I can remember, his rookie year was 1990. I want to say
97 was his rookie year.
So yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, so he had signed a 1-year deal in 2003 for $3.7 million. He was not making a lot of money, but the biggest problem was the fact that in order to facilitate a deal, the Mariners would have to move somebody off their 25-man roster to make room for Aaron Boone.
Well, let's take a look at that 2000. Well,
in order to make the money work, so the Mariners would had to have traded somebody off their 25-man roster for prospects to clear the salary. Trade for Aaron Boone to make up that salary gap, but they would also have to get rid of prospects in order to facilitate the deal. And if you remember, back in 2003, the Mariners minor league system was not really all that great. And so the idea would have been to trade for prospects that you can turn around and then trade for Aaron Boone to try to figure it out. And the reality was that the Yankees just had more to offer, and they didn't have to make room for salary issue, the salary difference. They could just take on the 3.7, but the Mariners were not going. That basically tells you what the Nintendo ownership was all about. Because if you remember in 2001, Pat Gillick had saved money from the offseason. He was allowed to spend going into the 2001 season, but he also had saved some money in reserve for the deadline. But of course, the Mariners were basically kicking the shit out of everybody throughout the first half of the season. And when it came to the deadline, ownership said, you're not spending whatever overage you had. And that will just be prorated to next off season. And so he couldn't
re-sign Brett Boone, basically.
Right. So, that was, so all that money ended up going over to the next year. And so, that was, they wanted Aaron Boone. They wanted to pair the Boone brothers. There was a lot of interest, but in order to facilitate it, they would have to make, basically what Jerry Dipoto did this offseason in order to reshape the roster. He had to get rid of certain players. He had to move off certain salary, and you're not going to do that in the middle of the season, especially, in 2003, the Mariners were still a very good team in 2003. They were at the end of the window, but, you don't trade away certain people to make the money work. And so they, again, just decided not to do anything at the deadline. And as you know, Aaron Boone went on to Yankee lore in that game, obviously in the
Game 7 off of Tim Wakefield, right in front of his brother, because his brother was a visitor in that color commentating with Joe Buck and Tim McCarver.
And, that was, now let's understand another thing, that Aaron Boone was not going to help us win the division. The Mariners needed, that it's weird because that was a very good team. I believe they won 93 games that year.
They did.
Still a very good team, but they needed right-handed firepower that they had sorely missed when A-Rod left. And they got some of it in Brett Boone, and they got some of it in 2001 from Mike Cameron. But for the reality was they needed something else. And there was talk in 2001 about either Brian Giles or Reggie Sanders. Just didn't work out. So I don't think Aaron Boone was going to help us win that division. And even if it did, when you look at the complexity of the 2003 postseason, I don't. Maybe we get past the divisional, but that's it still doesn't matter. Kevin Kirby, by the way, is asking who is the worst GM, Bavasi or Jack Z, and that's a very unique question. But it has to be Bill Bavasi, and I think it's not even close. Like Jack Sorensic was a bad GM. But his excuse was the fact that he had never held a front office position. He was always just a scout. And so coming from a scout's perspective, he thought he could just identify certain players and bring them in or build around, where Bill Bavasi was just inept. Was just not like...
He was carried by the father's name, Buzzy Bavasi, who built the Dodgers dynasties. And
everybody, when they think, what the Angels were in the 2000s, everybody thinks Bill Bavasi, but people forget that it was Bill Stoneman that built those Angels teams. And then Bill Stoneman leaves, Bavasi comes in, and he didn't really do much, to lift that team higher. Like Bill Bavasi was just a seat holder. And then he comes to the, like Jerry Dipoto, he comes from the Angels, and then he literally dismantles whatever's left from that window, and then pivots to some of the worst baseball teams this town has ever seen. But so, by the way, I got to ask you this question.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the Astros trading for your boy Yusei Kikuchi?
Well, he ain't my boy because he's from Japan. But before we even get into that,
no.
What?
That wasn't why I was asking. I was asking because I thought you were a Kikuchi fan from his Mariner days. I thought you were a.
Nope. Never was. But before we get into Kikuchi, now going to the top 10 prospects where they could have offered for Brett Boone, could have been Rafael Soriano, but he was in the major leagues at the time, so that wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah.
The injured Chris Snelling, Jose Lopez, Shin-Soo Choo. I think any of those names maybe could have gotten Aaron Boone,
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Sin-Shu Chu and
Jose Lopez.
Sin-Shu Chu and Jose Lopez easily could have got that deal done. That's the thing. It's like, knowing. But here's the thing, though. It's like the difference between a guy like Bill Bavasi and Pat Gillick. Pat Gillick wouldn't have given both of them up, and I believe that Aaron Boone was a rental. You know what I mean? So you're going to have to pay an overprice. But that being said, yeah, I think he was a rental because I think he became a free agent after 2000.
Checking his contract.
Correct me on that, but I believe that was his 7th year in Cincinnati, because I believe 2002 was his 6th year, and I think he came back on a 1-year, $3.7 million deal for 2000.
He was still under contract, so I think he was going to be a free agent after 2004. So he was going to be maybe a 2-year rental at best.
Right.
But he got released by the Yankees because they got Alex Rodriguez.
Well, originally he was slated to be the third baseman, but he blew out his knee in spring training, which is why A-Rod was brought in. But the funny thing is, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue, man.
Well, I was going to talk about the Yusei Kikuchi, but you said you had funny things to say. Save what you say, type it in. But Yusei Kikuchi, it's a depth move, obviously, for the Astros, but they did pay a heck of a price. I heard they paid with some of their better prospects to get a starter in Kikuchi, which the Astros needed. And the advantage of Kikuchi is he's going to have much more run support and much more protection than what the Blue Jays were giving him. So
yeah, well, the funny thing is being out here in Michigan, okay? The crazy thing is that the big question surrounding the Tigers were whether they were going to trade away Tarek Skubal, who is essentially the Tigers' best pitcher in their rotation. He's young. He's got club control. But the Tigers are, terrible. They're not, I mean, they're mediocre at best, but they're not going to be anywhere near contention for the next 3 years. And so the best thing you can do in those situations, especially if you have value in club control, is flip them for players that are going to raise your level. And so the thought was that the Astros were going to make a play for Tarek Skubal, and the Tigers, right now at least, have decided to hold on to Skubal. And when you look at what the Astros paid for Yusei Kikuchi, and Kikuchi is what, a 5th starter at this point? He's a depth,
pretty much. He's a
depth starting piece, and the Astros, who don't have that great of a minor league system, gives up right-handed pitcher Jake Bloss, who's got a live arm, a very live arm. I think he was ranked number 9 in the MLB pipeline. They get infielder, outfielder Will Wagner, who is number 13, and they gave up Joey Loperfido, who had already made his major league debut. He had a very good first half of the season. I know, like, the last month or so hasn't been great for Loperfido, but the interesting thing was, like, that went for Yusei Kikuchi, for a dude who at this stage of his major league career is not going to help the Astros get over, but maybe he will. Maybe he'll go there and make some starts and he'll be decent for them. But it would have been something had the Astros ended up getting Tarek Skubal from Detroit. And that actually makes sense for the package of prospects that went back to Toronto. For Detroit, that actually would have made a lot more sense in that regard. But that's the thing. It's like you can see, and I still haven't heard anything up to this point about more deals involving the Astros. But to me, that reeked of desperation of Houston. You know what I mean? Like, they needed starting pitching, that market is thin right now. A lot of teams, especially with the third wild card, and especially with a lot of teams still feeling like they're like within the mix of that third wild card. So a lot of teams are not willing to get rid of starting pitching, and so you gotta take what you can get, and teams use that as leverage. And to me, it's just like the Astros, the Astros in desperate need of another arm because of their, their rotation history, injury situations. To me, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh boy, that screamed of desperation to me. I was like, God damn, like they're hurting for arms.
Well, speak of like division, our division rival, the Texas Rangers, just got your boy Andrew Chaffin from the Detroit Tigers. I wonder how much what was given for that.
I saw that, and this is also a situation with of like what the this was also a situation of them absolutely needing they needed arms as well too. It's no secret that
he looks like Todd Jones.
Andrew Chafin, I'll say this, man. Chafin is good. He's not great, but he also has moment. If used right, he's actually quite effective. The problem with Detroit was the fact that it's Detroit, so their back end isn't great, and so sometimes they were asking Chafin to do things that maybe he's not equipped to do. And he had some very good moments with the Tigers, but he also had some very bad moments with the Tigers. But in a situation like Texas, where they do have some bullpen cover, where they're not going to have to use Chafin that way, it could actually end up working quite well. Speaking of,
looks like Paul DeJong is switching dugouts. He's now going to the Royals from the Cleveland, from guaranteed rate field. So who are the Royals playing right now? Paul DeJong must be a Blue Jay.
Let's see. The Royals also acquired Lucas Ursig from the A's.
Chicago.
There you go. And the Astros acquired also left-handed pitcher Caleb Ferguson from the Yankees.
I saw that one too.
Yeah, the Guardians had themselves a very good deadline for all you Cleveland fans out there, getting Alex Cobb, and they also got Lane Thomas. That's huge. That's very huge. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like that's the thing, is it shows you just exactly what the market is for pitching right now. It's very thin, and so that's the beauty of what the Mariners were able to do, is getting Jimmy Garcia from the Blue Jays, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting how the Mariners set the market for the for a bat and for bullpen help, and just the cost of what they were able to do to get Jimmy Garcia to Seattle. It kind of set the market. And when you take off the best bullpen arm and you take off the best bat off the market, it doesn't leave much for other teams to swoop in to try to match that.
What do you think that the Mariners could have done to get Vlad Guerrero? Because it looks like the speculations was that the Blue Jays were just not interested in, like, you could have given them the entire farm system and it wouldn't have mattered.
It's interesting. And I got the impression that the Mariners were offering their top prospects. I mean, the word came down last night that the Mariners are still very active in the trade market, and all of their top prospects are available. Right. So you're talking Colt Emerson, you're talking Laz Montez, you're talking Harry Ford, you name it, it's available. And, from the Toronto standpoint, it's like, listen, man, it's a very hard thing to do. When you look at where the Blue Jays are as an organization, it's a very hard thing to do, to trade the face of your franchise. And it's understandable that the Blue Jays probably are not going to be in the postseason this year. They have a lot of work cut out for them, but they still have their shortstop and they still have their first baseman in Toronto. And I don't think that Toronto could trade Vlad Guerrero and
Boba
I don't think they're going to be able to trade Vlad Guerrero and have face with their franchise. Like that's the type of deal. Like, regardless if you got the Mariners' top 5 prospects in that deal. You know what I mean? Let's say that you were able to 5 for 1 and you were able to get just unbelievable prospect package. It's still a hard thing to sell without having that come back without repercussions. And so I'm sure it was a business decision, because Toronto still has to sell tickets, even without the possibility of the playoffs. They still have to have fans come to Skydome and watch them play. And so you have to have certain pieces around in order to sell. And so it was a business decision. It's the same reason why the Angels didn't, trade
Shohei Ohtani
last year when they absolutely should have. It is what it is, man. But yeah, Yandy Diaz.
He seems to be the last notable available offensive hitter, because it looks like Brent Rooker he's out of the game. Because look like, yeah. Oakland traded one of their bullpen pieces away.
Yeah, they traded Lucas Ursig to the Royals.
Yeah, Royals got some good depth out of that.
Yeah, but that being said, I don't think that the A's were unwilling to trade him. I think the A's were in a position where, you have to make it worth their while. There's certain guys that they'll trade for bulk. And then there's certain guys where they understand that they hold all the cards. And it's if you want Brent Rooker, you're going to have to pay a premium. So if you're the Seattle Mariners and you're dealing with a team in your division, it's are you going to let the A's leverage you for Brent Rooker? Having the potential of that come back to bite you in the ass. There's certain guys, for instance, right? So let's say the Mariners were trying to get Lane Thomas from the Nationals. You would be able to conceive, a scenario where maybe a couple good prospects go to DC, but who gives a damn if they end up in DC, because you're only going to face them maybe once a year. You know what I mean? But with the A's, the last thing you want to do is have some of those prospects and come and get you three or four different times a year throughout the course of the season, and a couple of years in advance. So you always want to think about that. But I think when it comes to the A's, they were going to be asking quite a bit for a guy like Brent Rooker,
which they are known to do. They love to build that farm system every single time they could get.
A good GM. Now, mind you, this is all business too, because it's all business with the A's. Yes, they, regardless, A's fans aren't going to come out and support John Fisher, right? So all of this is for next year and the next 2 years as they work their way toward Las Vegas, right? So I also think a lot of that has to do with that, right? So if you're going to be playing in Sacramento for the next couple of years, you also have to think about future business, right? So if this was a situation where the A's knew they were going to be there until 2028, I would probably assume Brent Rooker gets traded. But in order to facilitate that deal, you're going to have to overpay. And no teams are going to do that. And so from that standpoint, they're looking towards 2025, 2026.
An update, which we got, this is not a trade, but we got Mariner roster moves. Justin Turner just reported to the club, and because of that, moves had to be done. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Diaz has been recalled from AAA Tacoma. Mm-hmm. I would wonder if they're going to put him on the bullpen. I don't know if they're going to make him a starter. Actually, they might, because Brian Woo's having his problems. Gabe Spire has been optioned to AAA because I guess he's not looking the same. And Tyler Locklear has also been optioned to AAA Tacoma, which that one wasn't really a surprise.
That was not going to be a surprise. I would probably think that Justin Turner is going to.
He's gonna. I think he's a platoon. I think he's a platoon with Luke Raley.
I would think that Justin. Well, yeah. So I think first and foremost, Justin Turner is going to be in the lineup every single day, and I think what's going to end up happening is that. Mitch Garver is now just your backup catcher.
Tom Murphy role.
Justin Turner is going to be your everyday DH, except for versus lefties, and then you'll probably see him play first base versus lefties.
And then Luke, I guess him and Luke Rayler are going to platoon, because then you're going to, if once Julio is back, hopefully he's back sooner than later, then you're going to have Robles at right field and Randy Arozarena in left field. But now if Arozarena happens, then that's going to be a very interesting, happens. What are they going to do with Mitch Haniger? What are they going to do with Luke Rayleigh and Garver?
I guarantee you, well, Garver is going to stay in that backup catcher. They're going to keep him in that backup catcher. Now, I would think that okay, so from my standpoint, they're looking for another outfield bat. Now, whether that's going to be Michael Conforto or whoever the case may be, they're gonna try to get off Mitch Haniger. Even if they have to eat some of that, they'll try to figure that out. The other thing that also has to be considered is also your shortstop position, because J.P. Crawford's probably not going to be back until September at the earliest, and you cannot have Dylan Moore playing shortstop every single day.
You can't.
Right, and that's where guys like Ahmed Rosario come into play. Although Rosario just got traded, so scratch him off the list. So it's you're going to be looking for a left-handed bat, preferably in the outfield, if they can make that happen. That Scott Service likes lineup balance. But that being said, the Giants just traded Jorge Soler back to Atlanta.
By the way, Mariners just made a trade, and this is a real trade alert. Mariners just acquired JT Chargois from the Marlins. Still waiting on who the Mariners gave up. Chargois is a 1.62 ERA. He's in the bullpen. 12 strikeouts to 7 walks, so he does walk quite a bit. But that's also a proof that they're not going to get Tanner Scott, which I was hoping the Mariners would have gone for.
Yeah,
so that was basically the not Tanner Scott move.
Right. So for me, this is
he was with the Mariners in 21, who was also one of their solid bullpen pitchers.
Yeah. So for me, this is this is actually this is actually what you want to see. Another bullpen arm. Another bullpen arm.
He was actually part of the Diego Castillo trade,
and it makes a tremendous amount of sense.
He was ironically part of the Diego Castillo trade. He was part of that package to get Diego Castillo after the Mariners traded away Kendall Graveman.
Okay. And
he was a free agent signing in 21. So this is clearly a depth move.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good, man. It's good.
And I'm just waiting who they gave up. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Let's find out.
Well, that's what the Twitter is for. Mets are getting Paul Blackburn. Wow, A's are really selling, but they just won't sell Brent Rooker. Right. I wonder if he does get sold, but maybe to a National League team, though.
Yeah, what I was saying earlier was that, that's one of the things that the Mariners have to do is, so, they still have a lot of work to do. They're going to have to try to pick up a shortstop. Even a guy from Detroit, like Andy Ibanez from Detroit. And a left-handed outfielder if they can, and I know that, and this can also be something like where you're not necessarily worried about defense, you're just looking for bat first. So even if they got home dude from Tampa Bay,
do you dare even give Ryan Bliss a chance or keep him in AAA?
Yeah, well, Ryan Bliss can't play shortstop.
Oh yeah, he's a second baseman.
Yeah. So, you're not necessarily going to call him up to, I mean, he can, like, if you need him to do it for a day, but you're not going to be doing that for, for him to take regular reps at shortstop. So let's see. Let's see if we can.
Still curious on who the Mariners traded away to get Chargois.
Let's see. So he is reporting that. So Ken Rosenthal is reporting that JT Chargois. They're just not saying who yet. And let's see.
And ironically, he was part of that Diego Castillo trade. And Diego Castillo fell off a cliff fast. And I never was a fan of him anyway.
Let's find out. Let's find out a little bit about JT Chargois.
Paul DeJong going to Kansas City.
So Chargois is only this year. He's only pitched in 16 and 2/3 innings, 12 strikeouts,
7 walks.
7 walks, 12 strikeouts, 1.62 ERA. You're looking at, he's got a 5.32 FIP. But again, it is what it is.
The depth move.
Well, I wouldn't even say that. He's going to play a role in this. He's going to play a role in this bullpen. They need, especially with Santos unresolved. You're going to need that extra arm in that bullpen. So that makes a lot of sense.
Basically, in some ways, it may just replace Stanek, which I was asking the Mariners to do because it was like,
sure,
if you're going to trade Ryan Stanek away, then you got to get someone because you can't just trade Ryan Stanek and get nothing back.
It's funny that it's funny. There's certain people that are on Twitter right now saying it's the return of the guy.
He was on the team in 21.
Yeah. Let's. Yeah. So wow, the A's. Yeah. You're right about the A's. They're kind of selling a little bit.
Interesting. Paul Blackburn to the Mets, and there was actually another fun fact by Ryan Divish. He said Blackburn was acquired by the Mariners along with Daniel Vogelbach for Mike Montgomery, and then traded to the A's for Danny Valencia.
Hey man, don't sleep on Valencia.
He didn't. One of my boss's name was Danny Valencia. Danny Valencia had 15 home runs, 66. Wow, he actually had an okay-ish year with the Mariners.
Yeah.
2017 was a blur to me. Like, I didn't pay attention for whatever reason. I just didn't. I don't know why. 2018, I kind of did, and 2019 was when I really paid attention again.
It bugs me though because he made so many moves in his first 3 years, and Paul Blackburn would have been. I don't know, man. He would have been sweet.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have known back then. And it was a completely different time.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't really judge anything about that.
True.
Still waiting on what the return was that the Marlins got.
Right. I'm sure we'll figure it out pretty soon.
But now we're just waiting on whether the Mariners get Yandy Diaz, because that seems to be the hot ticket offensive hitter for any team to get. Because if the Rays are on fire sale, then I would think that Yandy Diaz has got to be off the team by this afternoon.
It's interesting that it'll be interesting to see if they do that because the word about a Rosarina and Diaz's significant other not liking each other. I think it was like what the wives don't like each other
That's what I heard too.
So it's going to be interesting to see if that is going to play a factor in anything. But that's the thing. It's like if you're the Mariners, the question really you have to ask is whether or not that's going to be an issue. And if there's not going to be any issue, then whatever. You know what I mean? You just do it. It's interesting, man. Like, how would you feel about, like Josh Lau?
Josh Lau.
Yeah, Josh Lau from Tampa.
Taking a look at Josh Lau.
Not, he hasn't had the greatest year this year, and 185 plate appearances. But, the way I look at it is, if you're looking for a left-handed bat,
he had one good year last season.
Yeah.
But that seems like a kind of guy that if they don't get Randy Arozarena, maybe they get that guy. And he probably isn't going to cost really anything.
Yeah.
He's definitely not going to cost the top 10.
My only problem is he's got a WRC plus of 78. It's not been good. But, that's the thing is if you're just looking for that bat, you know what I mean? You're looking for something that plays, especially from the left-handed side at T-Mobile Park. There's very few guys that I would think that would be available at this time. And that could play. So let's see. The Diamondbacks have acquired Josh Bell.
Justin Turner is batting fourth and starting at first baseman
tonight. Yeah, I saw that. I don't mind that at all. The problem with this is that so they get Chargois for a year and a half.
By the way, here's the starting lineup.
Yeah, I see it right now. Robles leading off. Arozarena's batting second. Raleigh third. Turner fourth. Polanco fifth. Moore, Garver, Vinegar,
Rivas.
See, I'm okay with Rivas at this point.
But we need that just one more bat, whether it's Yandy Diaz.
Yeah,
looks like Brent Rooker's not going to happen.
Oh, so here it is right here. The Mariners are acquiring veteran JT Chargois from the Marlins in exchange for minor league starter Will Schomburg.
I saw that.
Yep. So there it is. Will Schomburg is going to be heading to the Marlins.
So they didn't really have to do much.
Nope. You're getting a guy who is coming in to work that that middle relief area, and that's the thing. It's like Gabe Spires going down to Tacoma to fix whatever he needs to fix. But you're hoping that maybe by the end of the year it works out. Yeah, I like this though because Chargois, he's going to be the cool thing is that it's not just a rental. So you get him for 2025, and he's going to be a middle reliever. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. He also can be somebody that you can also flip as well too.
Yeah, let's hope they don't have to flip him. And if they do flip him,
I'm talking about maybe for this off season, if you're looking to revamp certain aspects of your lineup, that is a guy who is going to be able to play on the trade market.
Mets are sending Cade Morris in the Paul Blackburn trade.
Say that again.
Cade Morris is being sent to Oakland. If you even know who that is,
I don't. But good for the A's. It makes sense, man. It makes sense. I wonder if I wonder if the A's were just willing to sell the guys who are, close to the end of their deals. Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
yeah.
But I wonder if they're either going to make Brett Rooker like they're part of their future, but he's like 30 years old, so you would think that they would trade him.
Right.
It's quite surprising that they haven't, because they could get things, but then, like you said, no teams really want to give up that much for him. For considering that his defense is limited and all he's got is a bat.
Yeah, Justin Turner. Yeah. His bat play is big time for Seattle. You need guys that are, basically have WRC pluses of over.
Still need another
100. Bat. Yeah, we do. The crazy thing is but over the course of the last month and a half, I believe Turner's WRC plus is like 130, and that's going to play big time. And that's the fact is, the Mariners are acquiring hitters that are currently hot right now. I think that was all. I think that also plays into it as well. But I still think that, yeah, you're absolutely right. It all depends. When it comes to big bats, number one, it's availability and whether or not it's there. In the case of Vlad Jr., I'd be curious to see if the Mariners circle back to Toronto now that they've had a night to sleep on it. You know what I mean? Because I got the impression the Mariners offered whatever they wanted. But Toronto wasn't interested. So, you move on to the next target. And, if they end up with Yandy, and when Julio gets back, having a middle of your, having a middle of your.
I saw that for a second, but I checked the website and it was still him on Mariners. Yeah. But I would wonder if that's Photoshop for trolls.
I would think
so. But if
so,
that trade happened, if he went there, then I would think that they would have gotten at least Yandy Diaz out of that trade if they're going to trade Celestine.
Well, the interesting thing is, they get a player to be named later, but I heard that it's not going to be a top 5 guy, and Celestine is certainly in your top 5.
That proves when the Mariners traded for Dave Hollins, then David Ortiz was probably not their top prospect.
Unless there's something in the works that is, just thinking of getting a guy like Yandy, and then when Julio gets back, and now the middle of your order is Julio, Arozarena, Yandy, Cal, Justin Turner. That is a lineup, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself here.
David Ortiz was not even even a top 10 when he was traded for Dave Hollins at the time. So at the time, you may have said that, it was just a throwaway trade, because they didn't know that David Ortiz was going, or David Arias, because they didn't know he was going to be at that level. So I guess you can't hate the trade too much at this point.
Correct.
Because it nearly, and the 96 trade deadline unfortunately doesn't get enough recognition because they didn't make the playoffs. If they did, 96 would have probably done better, would have been considered better than 95 in terms of just trade and value. Because Mariners gave up a guy who unfortunately eventually died, Roger Blanco, for Mark Whitten, and that was the most steal of a trade that I think the Mariners ever did. And don't forget, it was Desi Relaford for Terry Mulholland, and then Darren Bragg for Jamie Moyer. So those were very underrated trades that happened. Not so much for Mulholland, but definitely for Jamie Moyer and Mark Whitten. But sadly, because the Mariners fell apart in the late 96 part of the season, didn't make the playoffs, that trade deadline's forgotten, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And also, do you have any idea why teams are still able to make trades even after the deadline? Because I noticed that there's some trades that happen after deadlines.
So post the 30th, this is the non-waiver deadline where players do not have to pass through waivers. post the deadline, trades can still be made, but players have to clear waivers. So that hypothetically speaking, when two teams get together and make a trade, like if you remember back in the day, Vince Coleman came after the deadline, and how it works is that two teams match up for a trade post deadline. Both players have to go through waivers. Now there is a gentleman's agreement among other GMs around the game that if there's any trades post deadline, that they're not going to put claims in. But hypothetically speaking, like if let's say the Mariners and the Cubs link up for whoever, Nico Horner, what's his bucket?
Cody Bellinger.
Hypothetically speaking, that the Houston Astros can put a claim in on him, depending on where their waiver spot's at. But usually, how it works is that teams, if there is a trade post deadline, usually teams do not come in and try to bogart their deal. But technically speaking, they could. And if you're Houston and Seattle is nipping at your heels, or vice versa, you don't want to see those type of deals get made. But I do know that it's rare these days. Post deadline, it's rare to see trades go down after the deadline. Like it still happens, but it's not as frequent as it used to be, because usually what ends up happening is the reason why those deals used to happen was that for whatever reason they couldn't get it done before the deadline. For instance, if a team had a reliever or a team had an outfielder, and at the deadline they were fielding multiple offers, and for whatever reason, the right offer wasn't there, and you happen to like a deal from the Mariners, and you were just hoping that maybe you would use that as leverage to get a better deal, and if it fell through and you ran out of time, you can circle back to it post the deadline and make that work. But with the way things are these days, I just don't see a division rival letting that one squeak through. I would like to think that Houston would probably swoop in, or Texas would swoop in and try to block something like that.
Random question. This guy, it's from Basebury History Nut. Do you think Albert Bell's attitude towards the media is what kept him out of the Baseball Hall of Fame? I never thought of that. I heard he had a beef with Hannah Storm of MDC.
That's an interesting beef to have, by the way. Let's see.
But I do think Albert Bell should have been a Hall of Fame player, though. I mean, his numbers are insane. Just look at it.
Yeah, I'm looking at his career numbers right now. So he was a 5-time All-Star, and from 1994 to 1996, he finished third in the All-Star vote twice, and then a second place finish once. But the problem with Albert Bell is he only had a 12-year career.
So the longevity wasn't. He only retired at 33.
Yeah, the longevity wasn't there, but his career numbers: 295, 369, 564, 933, a career OPS of 144, 381 home runs, 1,239 RBIs. So now that's interesting because the longevity is not there. Never won an MVP. 5-time Silver Slugger. And in the era between 92 to 99, was Albert Bell ever considered one of the best outfielders in the American League. Like all around, was he considered one of the best outfielders? Because I believe that when he went to Chicago, and especially when he ended up in Baltimore, I think he was a DH. So he didn't have a long.
Final race for Yandy Diaz, and teams are involved according to sources. According to Francis Romero, Yankees, Mariners, Astros, Pirates are out. And why would they be in anyway?
Well, first and foremost, so it's the Yankees, the Mariners, and who else?
And the Astros.
And my question to you is, who has the best ammunition in order to get that deal facilitated?
Seattle Mariners. They have the best farm system in all of baseball.
Yes.
But I think this is where the bidding war has begun. I think there is a bidding war going on between those three teams, if that is all true. So Mariners
if I'm Tampa Bay, if I'm Tampa Bay, I'm doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, make them pay.
I
think if the Mariners are to get it done, I think you're going to see at least 2 of those top 10 prospects gone. At least 2. It may cost 3 if this is, because now that you're drawing attention to Houston, knowing that the Houston and the Mariners hate each other. Yankees are the Yankees. Yankees are the Yankees. That may just up the value of Yandy Diaz, especially if all 3 of them are fighting, especially 2 of them are fighting their tooth and nails for a division, and one of them is basically, well, it's the Yankees.
So this coming off of Twitter, and this comes from East Coast M's that says the Seattle Mariners need to outbid every team in the Yandy Diaz discussion. Number 1, because they can. Number 2, you don't let the Astros add a quality bat to their lineup. Number 3, a quality bat is added to your lineup that allows you to take the next step with the offense. Just saying, 100%. If I'm saying
win at all cost.
Yes, like you do it at a high level and you do it to win. And that's the Michael Jordan philosophy. If you're going to do anything, you're going to do it at a high level and you do it to win. And if you are the Seattle Mariners, you're still in the driver's seat for the division. You still have the best pitching in the division. You've just added 2 arms to your bullpen. And
you fixed some of your bats.
Right. And you've already added Justin Turner, and you've already added Randy Arozarena, and you're going to get Julio back. So that's certainly going to help. And now you've given Julio protection in your order. So Julio is going to come back, and it's not going to be like you're going to have dudes hitting 200 or less, in and around them. So, Julio doesn't have to be that guy, because Randy can be that guy if you really want him to be that guy.
And he has been so far. He has played very well.
It takes protection off. It takes pressure off of Julio. And that's where you want Julio to be, just to be able to come to the ballpark, have fun, swing free and easy, and just hit bombs. Because now you have Randy Arozarena, and you're going to have Yandy Diaz in that lineup where Julio is going to be super comfortable in that lineup. And it just gives you that psychological edge over your division rival. And yeah, I'm 100% with you. If it means that you're giving up Cole Young and Felony Celestine and Laz Montez, okay. Because because you're going to be able to, because you're getting club control on Yandy, just like you got club control on Randy. And so that's going to be, they're going to be in your lineup for 2025, 2026. And you have Julio locked down on contract for the next fucking 3 decades. You know what I mean? So you're going to have 3 core guys in your lineup. And with the Mariners' ability to draft and sign in the international window, it's like, dude, it's like not going to be that big of a loss. So I'm just, this is it, right? You're coming down to the wire. We're 2 hours and now an hour and a half away from the deadline. And if that means you have to overpay, you do it, and you don't think about it. You don't think twice about it. When you look at what the Mariners have already given up prospect-wise already for the incoming, it's a win. And, you don't give a shit about what's going on with the Modesto Nuts. You don't care about the Everett Aqua Sox. or the Arkansas Travelers, you care about the Seattle Mariners, not just for 2024, but 2025 and 2026. The Mariners are still going to, their minor league is still going to be just fine. So
couple things. I got a couple things. This guy made a very interesting post. His name is Chad. He's actually one of my members, which I do appreciate. So Chad, if you're listening to this, I appreciate you giving me or being part of the membership. Not giving me money. I don't want to sound like that. But this is what he said. And I thought it was interesting. So many of these local Mariner YouTubers, podcasters grow a bit of a following and then get big heads, straight up condescending to their followers and demeaning. Don't like it. Remember where you came from, just hoping for a few people to watch your videos. I would like to say I'm pretty sure I am not part of that list.
Wow, Chad's coming hard, man.
He's being a Chad. That's what he's doing.
Well,
I like
I'll say this, man. Like there's certain people, in the Mariners YouTube sphere that have an attitude of like their opinion is the only one that matters. Sure. I can name 2 people that fit that description. I'm not going to, but I think you probably understand who I'm talking about.
I have the idea.
But that being said, whatever, man. Like if they have an audience, they have an audience, and that's the thing. It's like I'm never going to not crack on anybody. I don't necessarily like the ego, but it is what it is. And if you feel that way, then have at it and whatever. It is what it is. I think we should all like work together in a.
We all should, but that's what's been lost. Is the only ones I've really been working with are Couch GM, yourself. Sometimes East Coast M's. We chat once in a while. Jay Trident Podcast and yourself. I mean, originally I was hoping like everyone would have like a huge round table, but it has never happened.
It's an issue of here it is right here. The Padres.
Is it the Tanner Scott trade?
Yeah, the Padres are going to.
I was going to talk about that too. Also,
and it looks like
Blue
the
Jays
Twins
are selling, and they're giving away
Twins. Trevor Richards. And so now that's interesting, man. See, that's the thing. It's like, I wonder if the Mariners. That's funny. So Mariner Muse said the funniest thing that could happen in the next 90 minutes is the Mariners finally acquiring Mark Canha. That's funny. I wonder if the Mariners checked in with the Marlins and said, so
how much for Tanner Scott?
How much for Tanner Scott? And then they told him, and they said, is there any wiggle room? Can we negotiate? And they said, okay, this is what we want. How much for JT Shergois? Oh, okay, that's a lot better. We'll take him. That's interesting, man. That's interesting, man. So, yeah, that was awesome, man. Good for the Twins getting Trevor Richards, and good for the Padres. That is a very Padre move. That's a very Padre thing to do.
Yeah, they overpay. They're really weird. They sold. What was it? They sold. What's his face? The guy on the Yankees. I forgot his name already.
Yeah, so it's. So say that again.
I'm trying to remember that the Padres traded away. They sold on Juan Soto, and now they're buying again, which is weird. I think they just didn't want to deal with Scott Boras at the free agency, so that's why they sold. But then they are reloading with everything else.
No. So, like, if you remember last year, San Diego had a bad season. They literally had a bad season. A lot of it came down to pitching, and so knowing that Juan Soto was on the last year of his deal, and understanding that he was probably not going to re-sign in San Diego, they made the decision to trade him. And that was a good deal for San Diego because it fixed a very big area for them. And it's not like they're going to miss the offense, because San Diego's offense is still very good. They swung the deal for Luis Arias earlier this year. To fix that huge hole at second base, and now they're plugging bullpen areas.
Marlins got a ton of prospects back for Tanner Scott. So I wonder how much of that top 10 that would have been. I'm going to take a look and see where those prospects were. And then let's take a look and see how much those prospects would have been for the Mariners if they were to get Tanner Scott. So we can see if the Mariners missed out or they're like, nah.
What's the return?
It was Robbie Snelling, Adam Mauser, and 2 other prospects that are unknown.
Okay.
And it looks like they're not even in the top 30.
Interesting.
Oh, no, for the Padres. I'm at Padres. Wrong team. Whoopsie. Wrong number. Robbie Snelling is a number 2.
Yeah. So they traded a
haul.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why the Mariners didn't do it. So they would have traded Harry Ford. If you just go by rankings, they would have traded Harry Ford, Felnine Celestine, and whoever those 2 other prospects, probably not even the top 10. So Mariners would have gave up. That's why they didn't do it. If they were going to give up offensive top 10 prospects, it's going to be for Yandy. It's got to be for Yandy Diaz.
Yeah, it's got to be for Yandy. And, that makes sense. Like, that's the thing. I would like to think that, that's the thing. It's like, and that's that's a Jerry DiPoto thing. They're not going to move heaven and earth for a dude like Tanner Scott when they can go out and just get JT Chargois. But if you're saying Yandy Diaz, okay, 150%, you're going to Cold Emerson, Laz Montez. That's the thing. It's like, yes, you're going to lose guys that may or may not hurt you 2027 on, 2026 on, but you're getting a dude who you would rather have now, next year, and 2026. And it would suck because you're gonna be wondering whether or not Tampa Bay is gonna be able to develop a dude like Laz Montez. And who knows?
They would have. They would have.
I mean?
Because they at least, Caballero is doing about the same as he did with the Mariners.
That's exactly right.
But at least they kept Caballero from being garbage, I guess.
Yeah, so far the Mariners have gotten Randy Rosarina, Justin Turner, Jimmy Garcia, and JT Chargois for Aiden Smith, Brody Hopkins, Jonathan Clase, RJ Schrick, Jacob Sharp, Will Schomburg, and a player to be named later. I would think that is a very good
I would say it's the most aggressive trade deadline that we have seen since 1997. The last time we saw anything, 2006, if you want to count that. Mariners were so desperate to trade for a backup first baseman by giving away Ben Broussard and giving up Asdrubal Cabrera for a part-time DH in Eduardo Perez.
I certainly, this is certainly better than 2022. Just from the scope of what the Mariners were able to have, being able to bring in Justin Turner and Randy Rosarina and now 2 bullpen arms. This is much better than just getting Luis Castillo.
Oh yeah. Like we're as of now, what you said you would put it above 95, right? Would you put it above 90? Because 95 they did it on the cheap. They got Venice on the cheap.
Yeah.
They got Vince Coleman on the cheap, and they got insanely lucky. Like, those 2 players could have gone either way. Like, Venice, if it wasn't for that top 10 offense the Mariners had, Venice would have not been 7-2 because he had a 5-point-something ERA, so he got lucky. Well, Vince Coleman, like you said, was on his last part of his career.
By the way, Yandy Diaz is off the market. Yankees have acquired Yandy Diaz.
No,
in
you're
exchange for
joking.
prospects.
I'm not seeing anything. My phone is not exploding at the moment. Nah, you're just joking. It would never happen. No, it did not happen. It did not happen. No. Nothing's on my phone being said. I think you looked at the wrong post.
Let's see.
Just like when I saw the satire. Oh, another notification by Joe Doyle. Nope, nothing.
Okay.
I mean, I would find it just as satire as when people,
because there is a guy named Dr. Eric Shun who's saying that they have traded Yandy Diaz to the Yankees for prospect Jorbit Vivas and outfielder Jace Avina. That seems
no, that doesn't seem to add up.
Yeah, let's see.
I mean, I would believe.
But what's great. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, man.
I would believe that trade as much as there was a report that Samsung pulled their sponsorship away from the Olympics due to the controversial opening Olympics ceremony, which I also didn't buy, because if that was true, our phones would have exploded. And two, you would have saw stock price changes significantly because of that. So you had all these people going, "Yay, Samsung, you did the right." No, they would not. They're not that politically charged. They're just a pure business.
What's funny though is that.
But yeah, can you send me that?
You look at the
repost it. I want to see it.
Yeah. Hold on.
Hey, that gives me a good YouTube short opportunity. Like, did the Yankees traded away? Oh, nope. False alarm. Unless it's true, then I'm going to, like...
All right. I just put it on my timeline.
All right. Let's take a look and see what that post was, because I'll be very interested to see what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
by the way, the Marlins have cleaned up on the prospecting haul. Holy crap, have they cleaned up? Good for the Marlins.
The comments were, "Thank God he has a blue mark. Wasn't so sure." The other one was, "That guy is a fake. He posted that Jack got traded too. Don't fall for that. It's false freaking alarm, baby."
And there you go. Okay, so anyway, man, we got about an hour left, and so far,
that was a false alarm.
Yeah, so far, the only trade we've announced is JT Chargois. I like it, man. I do. I've definitely liked this. I've definitely liked this deadline, and I do like this better than the 95 deadline. Because
in terms of, we're just looking at it in terms of value, not so much of like impact, but it's more like, or what they did with it, basically. Because
I think when you look at it, it's not only did they get club control on Randy Arozarena, but they also got club control on JT Chargois. But the biggest thing, though, for the biggest thing is they took on payroll. They didn't. They got rid of Stanek and they got rid of JT Ty France. But
which must have provided some kind of financial flexibility.
A little bit, yeah. But for the most part, the Mariners were not afraid to take on payroll, which to me is.
I guess John Stanton walked the walk, saying that there will be resources available. I guess he walked his talk, just for a little bit, not by much. I mean, I'm still critical of him as hell.
And when you think about the fact that Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service don't have contracts for next year, they absolutely, from a Jerry DiPoto standpoint, he absolutely had to have a deadline that
would have brought in some more hope and to possibly save his job.
That's exactly right. But I'll say this though. Just because you have a deadline like this, it still doesn't take you off the hook, because you now have
still got to perform.
Yep, you now have a sprint to the finish line.
Justin Turner is now meeting with the media as of 18 seconds ago by Ryan Divish. And Ryan Divish, if you somehow got to this YouTube channel, I just want to say I'm giving you all the credit for your reports and everything. I know that we don't see neck and neck, but hey, you have done your job to report as much as possible and very much consistent, and your attention to detail. I'll give you that. I have to give you that.
It looks like the Red Sox are trying to get Rengifo. Looks like they're trying to get that one done. Yeah, Justin Turner is now meeting with the media. Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Yeah, that's so crazy that the Padres gave up their 3, 4, 6, and 29th prospects. That's crazy.
But the Padres?
Yeah, that's so crazy. But
and
it makes sense.
Someone that I debated with, he actually believes that the levels of those guys still wouldn't have been at least the same as what the Mariners would have given up. I mean, if you compared those rankings with the Mariners, maybe they would have been maybe in top 10 at best. So maybe if you compare the trades in terms of value, maybe one of those top 10s would have been gone for sure, which is why they didn't go for Tanner Scott, because I guess they didn't want to give up top offensive prospects for a relief pitcher. They want
yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it for impact. And I'm not saying that Tanner Scott wouldn't have impact, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's a closer.
Divish pointed out that he does have some walk concerns, though.
Yeah.
But so does the guy that the Mariners traded for from Miami. He also has a walk concern, but maybe that changes in Seattle.
And then of course, you have Mariner prospect stands who were like, I'm not okay with Laz Montez being traded. It's like, dude, you've never seen Laz Montez play baseball. What are you talking about?
Just look at his numbers. All you got to do is look at his DSL numbers. Like, the home runs, the batting average part looks nice, but look at his walk to strikeout ratio. It's really bad.
What's funny is like he had a decent start in Modesto, gets called up to Everett, and it's like,
and just sucks balls.
I wouldn't say that. It's just he's adjusting to a better level. It's going to take him a minute, but
he could take a while. Like I would think he's going to remain in A+ for the rest of the season. And he's definitely going to be in there for the first half of A+ for sure next season.
100%.
Like if he was playing at his same Modesto level, or at least even part of it, then he would have gotten to AA by like September. But that ain't happening this season. But Laz Montez's numbers
he got promoted because credit where is due. He had a very good start to the season in Modesto. And he earned a promotion. But the reality is, in order for him to move up, the thing that he has to do from this point on is lower his K rate, because the dude strikes out entirely. Like, the dude fishes. He was basically what Julio Rodriguez was in his rookie year. That dude was fishing. And
Montez is fishing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the one thing you can't do as a top prospect and expect to continue to move up the chain is to have those type of strikeout numbers. And there's a very good possibility that next year, if things don't improve this year at Everett, there's a very good chance he starts next year back at Modesto.
Yeah, I could see that. But here's his DSL numbers. In 56 games, 10 home runs, 41 RBIs, batting .284, .422 OBP. Cool. Great. You're doing that in DSL. Great. I mean, yeah, I can't do that, obviously, but 74 strikeouts in 56 games. That is the alarming. And that's what Joe Doyle warned me about, was he could either be maybe Yordan Alvarez, but he could also be Carlos Peguero.
He could also be Justin Smoke. He could also be Dustin Ackley. Like, you just don't know. It's too early. It is so far too early in his development to even say that he's going to be Yordan Alvarez, because that is like, that's the thing is I don't like player comps. with guys that are that low in the minors because it's so far too early. Now, if you were saying that he was at AA and he was going to get called up to AAA just to refine the last little process before getting called up, where everything is 100% dialed in, okay, maybe. But we don't know that. We do not know that. It's far too early. Yeah, he's Justin Turner, who is very familiar hitting at Fenway Park.
Here's what the Yankees have on what they are going to, on terms of like, if we're going to compare by pure prospects, Mariners obviously have the better hand because they have prospect 22 and 23, Cole Young and Harry Ford. Yankees' best prospect is Jason Dominguez, which I have his rookie card, by the way. He did suffer an injury last year, though, but he could be in play for that. And Astros' best prospect is Jacob Melton of AAA. That's their best prospect right now. Okay. Even Las Montez is in the top 50. So Mariners, in terms of just farm system alone, they have the upper hand. Now it depends. And there's the other thing. What else are the Yankees and the Astros going to give up to get Yandy Diaz? Is it like one of their,
unless they are prepared to potentially give something off their 26-man roster. Okay. It's going to be hard for the Yankees to make a swing like that. Everybody just assumes because they're the Yankees that they're going to figure something out. But the reality is, when you look at what Astros sent to Toronto and what the Mariners still have in their gun, they can easily get this done. And the reality is, we know that Tampa Bay likes Seattle's prospects. You know what I mean? It's like, feasibly, what can the New York Yankees send Tampa? You know what I mean? Like right now, what can the Yankees send Tampa that we can't better? What can the Astros send Tampa that we can't better? You know, I would have no problem trading Cole Emerson, Las Montez.
Because I remember Mariners got rid of two of their top prospects to get Luis Castillo, and gladly and thankfully that trade worked out in the Mariners' favor in the most lucky ways. Mariners kind of got lucky in terms of the value, because who would have thought that Noé Marte was going to be on PEDs, and then who would have thought that Edwin Arroyo was going to be a dud?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I just, that's the thing. It's like the way I see, the only thing that's standing in the way of the Mariners getting Yandy Diaz are the Seattle Mariners.
They're just afraid to give up their prospects.
But what's funny, it's like when they got Randy Arozarena, the asking price wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? Like, it really wasn't that terrible. But, the question is, is Tampa, like, it's one thing to get Randy Arozarena, because the Mariners have had interest in Arozarena for a while. And they were able to come together on a deal that gave them a couple prospects that made a lot of sense for them. But that being said, it's like, do the Rays profile Diaz a lot higher than they do Randy Arozarena? And if that's the case, is this a situation where we got to get rid of prospects 2, 3, and 4?
Which very much could happen.
and 5. You know what I mean? It's like, is this going to be like a Cole Young, or is this like a Cole Emerson, Laz Montez, Harry Ford, Emerson Hancock type deal?
The only thing to be nervous about, though, about Yandy Diaz is
Ty Locklear too. Throw Ty Locklear in there as well too, because you're trading for their first baseman. You have to at least give them a first baseman.
But the only thing to be nervous about Yandy Diaz is in his career at T-Mobile Park. Now, granted, it's just 36 at bats, 8 games started, 11 games played. So it's maybe not. It's probably not the most fair sample size. But he's batting 194, 216 OBP, and a 222 slugging percentage. But granted, maybe those were times when Yandy Diaz was facing a great starting rotation.
Right.
So maybe those numbers could be skewed.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't. It's weird, man. Like, I care about what the player's doing now, not necessarily
the past.
Yeah.
In the last series, when the Mariners were playing against the Rays in Seattle, Diaz, though, did hit a home run.
Sure.
And batted 357 with a 357 OBP. So maybe those numbers aren't necessarily a fair judgment. Maybe that was times when he was figuring it out, I guess.
Right.
Like 2022 when he was playing in Seattle.
So yeah, you're like he only has had 36 at bats in Seattle. That sample size is not that big of an issue.
He batted 200 in 2022, and that's when, I guess, 2023.
And like his numbers versus the Mariners aren't that great either, but whatever. Just out of curiosity, what team did he?
Oh, I stand corrected. So in Seattle, it actually wasn't 357. That was this year in 24 in Tampa. But the last time he played in Seattle, he batted 300 with a 300 OBP. He struck out 4 times, but he got 3 hits. So at least he was somewhat getting on base. Actually, 300 is pretty good when you're in T-Mobile Park. So maybe those numbers in T-Mobile Park are not exactly relevant anymore.
Yeah, like
but either way, you still go for him.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, let's see. I'm not. So let's see. So yeah, Francis Romero is saying the Yankees Astros are the teams making the final push for Yandy. 1 hour to go until the deadline. We'll see. I just think it's going to be interesting, man. We're 1 hour away. I'd like to think that. Yeah, like Yandy. It's going to be interesting.
I got to go to the bathroom now that we're at the top of the hour. And I'm going to play a quick ad and, I don't know, respond to it. Say what you will. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code Rooftop Sports to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you.
Yeah, take advantage of it, man. Take advantage of $20 off by using the promo code Rooftop Sports and get your tickets, man. Don't fuck around. But I will say that I just don't see how. We'll see, man. I just don't see a situation where, you know, the Mariners should allow a division opponent to end up with a bat like Yandy Diaz. It just doesn't make any sense. So it looks like Kevin Kirby says Astros got robbed Kikuchi, a free agent at year's end. A free agent.
Wait,
yeah.
What did I miss?
Oh, the report. Yeah, the report about the Yankees and Astros.
Francis Romero says Yankees and Astros are the teams making a final push. Wait, where is the Mariners? And this was as of 155, so maybe the Mariners are out of the trade for Yandy Diaz?
No. It's like that's the thing is I just don't buy it.
Well, I'm going to respond to this Francis Romero either way.
Yeah, I just don't buy it.
John Morosi, and whatever he says, it's never true anyway.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
You said you don't buy this. What can Houston or the Yankees offer that we can't?
yeah.
But it's saying from everyone else.
Yeah, like I just, I think we're in a, what I really think that we are. Oh, by the way, let's see. Roman Anthony, a top Red Sox prospect, has been scratched from the lineup today from AA Portland. Okay. I just think we're down to the wire, and fans.
I'm going to say this: if the Mariners allow the Yankees or the Astros to get Yandy Diaz, I am downgrading. I said it was a C+, but I'm going to downgrade it to probably like a C or a C-. I mean, I know that sounds very harsh, but I really want to give them a B+, but I'm going to keep it at a C for the grading if the Mariners allow the Astros to make it happen. Because if Astros make it happen, it's going to be a huge mess of trouble.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know, man. Like, until it's actually, actually reported that he's headed to Houston or New York, I'm just not going to buy it.
You're not going to buy it. Well, everyone else is on a panic mode. Look at this unhinged Mariners fan. Well, that's not him.
Unhinged. By the way, if there's somebody with the name of unhinged Mariners fan, that's got to be the greatest Twitter handle I've ever heard.
I guess so.
So 2 minutes ago, SI came out with a report that's between us and Houston for Yandy, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you're hearing. That's the thing. It's like you're hearing conflicted reports. And it's like, that's because nobody really fucking knows. Because, by the way, because these reporters these reporters may or may not be talking to GMs, okay? But that being said, they're not saying a damn thing until after deals are done. So, they're not going to be.
It doesn't add up that the Yankees and the Astros would be in it for Yandy Diaz.
Well, my whole thing is like they don't like. I know how this works. Okay, so a reporter does have contacts in the club, and usually it's another beat writer that is in around a club. And so what they'll do is they'll text or they'll call or do whatever they're doing. But for the most part, GMs and AGMs are not going to be, are not going to be leaking any sort of information. They're not going to be tipping their hand one way or another because they don't want word getting out, right? So they're going to keep this close to the vest. Like I know how GMs operate, man, and it just it's not going to happen. And so like Fish and Catch here in the chat room said that SI said we're making a final push, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, they'll say whatever, it is what it is, right? You'd like to think that they're on the phones, and I'm sure that they are, and I'm sure they've circled back to Toronto just to double check
if they can get Vlad Jr. at the last second.
But also, they also have what's his ass? That I like. What's his ass that I like?
What's his butt?
Hold on. What's his bucket?
I need to find another piece of paper.
A guy like Dalton Varsho. There are some
While you're looking at it, let me get another piece of paper.
Yeah. For me, it's just, you circle back, you make those phone calls, and you circle back and you make those phone calls. And that's the thing. It's like at this stage, with an hour left, yeah, you have all the bullets in the gun that you have to make a deal for a guy like Yandy Diaz. You can outbid any of them, and it's just going to be the question of whether or not they want to do it.
Unhinged Mariners fans, I really thought they were holding on to those prospects to make some sort of major deadline splash. But again, it's Jerry being Jerry, just sitting in his GD office, effing off to each and every single prospect like crook ass. I like this one.
But what's funny is that, like that's the funny thing is like they act like it's he's just sitting there doing nothing, like twiddling his thumbs, and it's like I guarantee you he's not. I would like to think that they're talking to Tampa, but the one thing that you have to understand is like when you have multiple teams trying to get the same player, Tampa's in a very very advantageous position to not just get the guys they like, but also potentially get more than the guys that they like. And the Mariners also don't want to get into a bidding war. They don't. But that being said,
this is for the World freaking Series. And actually, to think of it, if the Mariners do pull these trades off, like this will probably be the most aggressive free of trade deadline in Mariners history. 95 was, like it was on the cheap and they got lucky. 96 was also somewhat on the cheap, got lucky with the exception of David Ortiz, but at the time he was not considered a highly touted prospect. Unless you talk to A-Rod from 96, he'll tell you otherwise. 97 they hauled, but they didn't really get much in return. 2000, when they were contending, they traded for just Al Martin when they could have gotten Juan Gonzalez, but they didn't want to trade Pinero and Gil Mesh. 2002 and 3, they didn't even make a good trade with the exception of 2002. They got Jose Offerman. And 2003, they got the defensive specialist in Ray Sanchez. 2014 was for Austin Jackson. Imagine doing a YouTube show in 2014 for Austin Jackson trade. And then 22 was to trade for Luis Castillo. Mr. Sticky says, is it common for teams to wait until the last minute to strike a deal? Is there a strategic advantage to it? I don't know. I guess they were waiting until everyone else puts out their cards, I guess. For anyone cares, if anyone's in Venezuela, what a disaster it is. Not going to get into details, but when you have Elon Musk just blowing it up on his Twitter X, you know something's going on. I mean, I know what's going on. I just don't want to talk about it too much. The only thing I would talk about Venezuela on this channel is about any of the baseball prospects where they come from. No new notifications at this time. Jason Puckett's also doing his trade deadline show too.
Ooh, Jason Puckett.
Former KJR man.
Is it common for teams to wait until the last minute to strike a deal? Actually, it is common. Because, teams want to make sure that they got all the potential deals in, and some teams will come over the top to add to any potential deal on the table as like a pot sweetener. So the Rays don't have to make a deal per se right this minute. But, with an hour left, what they're doing is they're sitting back and they're examining every single offer from whatever teams are trying to get that done.
Would you have done that instead? Josh Bell, trade for Josh Bell, who would have been cheaper.
I'll say this, man. Josh Bell rebounded, but when you look at his
batting average, OBP.
Well, yeah, look at his quad slash. See, here's the thing that rubs me the wrong way a little bit, because like when you look at the power numbers, yeah, like Josh Bell has power, but when you look at his on base, his slugging, the slugging is comparable, but his OPS is a lot better. His OPS plus is a little bit over average. It seems like he just hits better, but
more efficiently.
He a little bit more efficiently, but some might say that it's like Josh Bell had a problem like the last couple of years. I would rather. This is coming from Chad. Absolutely. I wonder if the Astros and the Yankees are so desperate for the for the Mariners to put a deal over the top. The Rays want Ford and the M's aren't willing to go there. I highly doubt that it has anything to do with Harry Ford.
And it's not like Mariners really have Harry Ford as part of their future. The only reason why they would keep Harry Ford is in case they lose Cal Raleigh to free agency. And you made a good point saying in order to get a player like Yandy Diaz, the Mariners must be prepared to make an uncomfortable decision, which means trading away multiple top prospects, which is fine because Mariners are great drafters. This shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't. And we've already seen, we've already talked about it. Laz Montez has got to bring his strikeouts down. Felnine Celestine has injury problems. Farmelo tore his ACL. As much as there's a lot of hype for this farm system, there is still a lot of concerns on these top 10 prospects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, the way I look at this is prospects. So if you're a rebuilding team, prospects are your gold. They're your, they are your resources. Those are the things like your draft picks. It's like perfectly acceptable to hoard your draft picks in those scenarios, right? Because you're trying to accumulate as many as you possibly can. Fine. But if you're a team like the Mariners whose window is open right now and is going to be for at least another 3 years, because you still have Kirby, Gilbert, Cal Raleigh for another 3 years. Okay. So as long as they're still around, your window is still open. And now they got a Rosarina for the exact same spell. Your window is there. Munoz is under contract for that duration as well too. So it's like the things that make you a contender are going to be that way for the next 3 years. You need to fill your lineup or your defensive lineup with as many above average all-star level players as you possibly can. And if you have an opportunity to get one, you get one. And because the Mariners are very good drafters, very, very above average all-star level drafters, and they mine the international free agent market. They got one coming in this year as well too, and he's supposed to be the best international free agent available. The Mariners got him. Which
one was it?
I can't think of his name off the top. But he's coming to the Mariners. This should not be a problem. The Mariners should look at this as an opportunity instead of like, oh man, like Las Montez, like everybody thinks he's.
We just lost the future Yordan Alvarez.
It's like you can't.
There's a guy named. They just signed this kid named Leandro Romero, Dawell Joseph. These are all prospects.
Look at this as like, instead of thinking like, oh man, we just traded away a potential Yordan Alvarez, we just got an all-star quality first baseman,
which is desperately needed because Ty France hasn't had that spot in a while.
Who's going to be around for the next 3 years, 4 years, and that's one thing that we don't have to worry about next year, this offseason going into next year. That's check, done, right? That's good. So, because then all you have to do from that standpoint is, you can do what they did going into the 2022 season, see if they can strike a deal for a Jesse Winker type player. Like obviously Mitch Haniger is not going to be around next year. So like the number of holes that you need to fill is one less going into the offseason. And you're adding Yandy Diaz with Randy Rosarina, Justin Turner, to Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh. And it's like, this is a no-brainer. Like this, like you can't approach this from a standpoint of being scared that you're trading away somebody that Baseball America thinks is going to be something special in 2028. It's like,
also Mariners for 2025, they're in the favorites to sign Jorge Bautista, an outfielder. So let's say the Mariners trade away Las Montez, you can make it up with that guy.
Looks like the Pirates are acquiring Brian De La Cruz. That's pretty good.
Yep, I saw that too from the Marlins. Marlins are really on a pure fire sale.
I like that. I like that move for Pittsburgh. Right-handed pitcher Jun Sok Shim is returning to Miami. He was the Pirates' number 17 prospect entering this season. Interesting. Yeah,
just waiting. Just 40 minutes left. 42 minutes left until.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be really shocking to see the Rays be standing pat on Yandy Diaz unless they want to save him till next year to trade. See if maybe he has a more attractive trade market on him. But I think this is the Rays' best opportunity to load up on trading away Diaz.
This is coming from Adam Jude of your Seattle Times. Bearing an unexpected development in the next 45 minutes, the Mariners are done. I can't see that, and it's like I can't see it. And
man, the Pirates got
Brian De La Cruz, like maybe the Mariners could have got him, but they feel that they're filled on the outfield. It's really the infield that's really in the needs right now.
Here's the funny thing, right? So if you remember,
Oh yeah, you're looking at the Adam Jude, like barring the next 45 minutes, the final tally so far. They gave away 6 minor leaguers that were not even in the top 10, not even close, and still got Randy Arozarena, Jimmy Garcia, JT Chargois, and Justin Turner.
yeah, so if you remember, heading into this deadline, we were talking about a week ago. The common theme was that the Mariners were going to end up with Jazz Chisholm. If you remember that, that was the big thing on Twitter, coming from all these guys, that Jazz Chisholm was going to end up in a Mariners uniform, and he ended up in a Yankee uniform. Like, I don't buy anything until something happens, right? So when Adam Jude says they're done, come on, man. Barring something, an unexpected development, like you don't know unless you're actually in the GM war room, listen, like being a fly on the wall and listening to their phone calls. You just don't know.
George Kirby's World War II side part says they're definitely grabbing a first baseman IMO. They sent down Locklear. I mean, yeah.
Potentially.
But you already, like, that's the thing, is you already traded for a first baseman. You got Justin Turner.
Francis Romero says Pirates are working on a deal per sources. Pirates and the Astros are working on a deal. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be who's the Pirates' best player right now.
Brian Reynolds, maybe.
Yeah, I would think it's not going to be him.
Let's find out, shall we? In Pittsburgh, 54 and 52. Maybe it would be
McCutchen?
No, it would probably be maybe Brian Hayes or O'Neill Cruz.
Man, McCutchen was a beast back then.
But yeah, it's like Brian Reynolds. But that being said, though, what do the Astros have to offer?
Maybe it's just going to be a fringe bullpen pitcher.
Damn, that got 600 and... Damn, that got 600 and some odd views. Wow. It's a busy day.
Well, who got 600 views?
Oh, I one of my posts got 600 views. I was like, oh, wow. That got 643 views.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't see it, but
that's the thing, is I'm also not going to add a grade to this deadline, because we have no idea how Justin Turner and Randy Arozarena are like. I'll grade it at the end of the season.
That's fair.
If these guys help us get into the playoffs and we make a run to the LCS, I'll grade it. Then yes, it will be one of the best deadlines from a value, like we were talking about value earlier. From a value situation, I think this is probably the best deadline we've ever had.
This Mariner fan says, Mariner friends, okay, we don't get Yandy, but it's not a failure. Sheesh. We added Rosarena, Turner, Garcia, Chargois. We can't have it all, but we should have it all. We're the expectations freaks. We've seen it all. We've seen the Mariners get within 2 games of the World Series. We've seen the Mariners win 90 games several seasons and not even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
We should aim higher than this. And like you said, if we trade away the future Yordan Alvarez, fine. We have some other kid that's waiting for us from Venezuela.
Right. It's like I can't, like that's the thing. It's like, we're 36 minutes away from the deadline.
and nothing has happened yet.
You know, except for a bullpen arm, which I was fine with. But what's funny though is, like, you know, it seems like
It seems like that's the thing. It's like it seems like there's still one more trade left to be had. You know what I mean? And you know, Jerry's not afraid to make deals. He's not afraid. But that being said, though, I just look at this and I just say, well, I'm also reading some of these tweets as well too, but my biggest thing is not upgrading shortstop for the month of August. You know what I mean? Getting a guy who can come in and play that's going to be able to hold his own offensively, knowing that when JP comes back, he's going to be, you know, basically a super bench player.
Mariners Sir says solid deadline, which he believes. If the Rays hold on to Yandy Diaz, I'm okay with them being done as there is an impact otherwise. If Yandy is moved, though, that won't sit well with me. Can only trade for guys available so far. They've done based on known availability as of this minute. Who knows if they're actually going to hold on to him?
Yeah.
Pirates just made a deal to get Isaiah Kiner from the Blue Jays. I mean, you would think so. It looks like they're just trying to still sell tickets based on the name of Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette, but everything else they know they're pretty much.
Yeah, well, they know that they're not. They know that they're not in a. They know that they're not in a going to be in the playoffs, and they also have a. They also have a business obligation.
Is someone flying an airplane?
That would be a motorcycle. That would be a motorcycle. So this guy from Mariners playoff hopeful. Do we get another bat? Yes, no. Jake Lamb at the buzzer. That's funny. That's good. Yeah, like I still think, you know, we still got 30 more minutes until the deadline. I see this. I see this. I see it going down.
You still see a Mariners trade within the last 33 minutes?
I do.
What do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be Yandy Diaz or maybe some kind of mid-level player that we're not expecting at all?
So this is now coming from a Houston sports guy who just got into my what's it called and said we can't offer more than the we can't offer more than the M's. Yeah, of course, I know you can't, but that's not the issue at this point. It's going to be will the Mariners make that tough decision? That's going to be the question.
Remains to be seen.
I can't imagine that this is it. I mean, it's
it'd be insane to say this is it, but then you have people like Adam June going, yeah, it's okay.
You know, I mean, in retrospect, they got the best bat on the market,
Randy Arozarena.
They got probably the second best contact bat on the market, Justin Turner, and they got two bullpen arms that are going to play huge roles down the stretch. So, and you know, if Santos comes back, that adds to that depth in the bullpen, and then, you know, you're just hoping that Julio gets back within these 10 days and gets back into the lineup. It looked like when he made that catch when we were doing the broadcast when he injured his ankle, looked like he was walking off the field fine. The Mariners kept him out as a precaution. Okay, fine. So he should be coming back. and you're just kind of hoping that mix is enough. But I would like to see. That's the thing. It's like when you look at this lineup right now, there's still places where you could improve. I also remember
East Coast M's. Yeah, Mitch Haniger.
Mitch Haniger is still going to be on this roster. Like that's the thing. It's like, you know me, I'm a Mitch guy. But that being said, that having him still on the roster lets you know that they still have a lot of room to improve.
31 minutes.
A lot of room to improve.
I wouldn't want to be Justin Hollander and Jerry DiPoto right now. It sounds like they're in a very. If they're making those calls, that must be a very stressful job. Like I do not envy their jobs one bit.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like when Lane Thomas came off the board, when Tommy Pham came off the board. That was and Carson Kelly, although he's a catcher. But when Lane Thomas and Tommy Pham came off the board, I was like, damn, because those were, for me, those were the guys that I were kind of hoping the Mariners were targeting. But, it is what it is.
Typical DiPoto will never do what it takes to get them over the top. Someone said that, Mariners Truther. Yeah,
Mariners Truth says, guaranteed DiPoto makes excuses this offseason about, I wish I did more at the deadline when they missed the playoffs.
Oh, he will say that. And then he'll say, I'm still doing you guys a favor 54% of the time.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, we're still waiting. We got 29 minutes. So I think it, I like it. So, that's the thing is they got two of the better bats that were available.
Justin Turner and Randy Arozarena.
And I like the Justin Turner move because he's the guy that's been to the top of the mountain. He's got a ring. So he's been, he's a guy who is, I use the term the Carlos Santana guy. You know what I mean? That veteran, that savvy veteran who's going to give you professional at-bats, who can play the DH first base role. And, for guys like Cal Raleigh, for guys, for some of these core guys, it's good to have that in the clubhouse. It's good to have that where you can bounce things off. I think it's going to be invaluable, but he's also coming here to hit. So, he's not going to give you a load of power, but he is but he is a good hitter though. JT, that's so crazy.
Unhinged Mariner fans, F the farm. Jerry just made a huge bleeping move already. The time is now.
Yeah, dude. It's like, what's funny is like there's a lot of people that will say something like, we can't trade this, that, and the other. But then it's like, coming down to the wire, everybody's like, just sell it all.
Well, there were people saying that was ridiculous. I was like, we're going to sell on a contending year. That's insane. Which they did last year, by the way.
Right. What's funny is last year with Boston in his age 38 year, he hit 23.96 last year. This year it's only 631, but he's right there. He's right there, kind of where his his numbers are. You like to see his slugging a little bit better, but his OPS is fine. 631. He's not going to give you a tremendous amount of power, but he's good. Justin Turner's going to hit, and it plays.
Jason Bristol of Houston can confirm reports that Astros were interested in Yandy Diaz. Rays likely interested in pitching prospects back. Astros may not have enough at this point. So does that hint that the Mariners, they may not even have the pitching prospects either for Yandy Diaz?
That could be.
That's the problem. So maybe that's what may come down to, because now they want pitching prospects.
Could. This is coming from Nathan Bishop. My view is if this doesn't change, the deadline would have been fine if you hadn't had maybe the 2 worst off seasons in franchise history. You did though, and thus the bar for the deadline was higher to compensate. They haven't come close to clearing it, in my opinion. 100%. 100%. Yep. Reports out of Tampa are one of the only reasons they moved Paredes was because of Morel. They believe in his potential that much. Okay. Well.
This guy, Homer Hater, what a joke. So as usual, just half-footed. Didn't do nearly enough. F off, Jerry. Now you have these fans coming in.
How about this one? Yankees are reportedly getting interest in Alex Verdugo this afternoon. Is there a deal
saw that
in the last half hour? It's like, dude, that's also something I would love to have.
Yeah,
Alex
but the
Verdugo
Yankees,
I would have
the
no
Yankees
problem trading.
actually do that.
I would have no problem.
He was a longtime Boston guy.
The Mariners haven't traded one of their top 10 prospects and still have Jason Vosler, Cade Marlowe, and Leo Rivas on their major league roster, not to mention Mitch Haniger. Yeah, that's true.
Sleepy Jerry, I need you to do an MJ and hit a buzzer beater for Lamonte Wade. Huh, interesting. I think Major League Baseball should push the trade deadline 10 more days. Absolutely not. A deadline is a deadline.
A deadline is a deadline. When everyone is healthy, the lineup looks something along these lines. Robles, Julio, Cal, Rosarina, Polanco, Rayleigh, or Vosler, or Canzone, Turner, Rojas, JP. The lineup should be good enough. First base needs to be upgraded. Yeah, I guess.
Celium Broderick. Never heard of this person, but welcome to the channel. It is like baseball, but with sticks. It's a field sport like soccer. Okay.
It is like baseball, but with sticks. And it's a field sport like soccer. I don't want to hear the soccer word because I still have to watch today's Olympic.
I did see that. Mariners haven't traded one of their top prospects and still have Jason Vosler, Cade Marlowe, Leo Rivas, and Mitch Haniger. Astro fan going, I'm effing dying at people ripping Brown as a crap GM for trading uncontrollable value for rentals while previously lauding Click. Oh, wow. Okay. Looks like Astro fans are having a division. Soto Mojo says, wow, try not to take this as is. We're done adding bats because you haven't done enough to... Yeah, they haven't. And John Morosi said 6 hours ago that the Mariners were still working on it. But John Morosi also said they'd like to add one more leverage reliever, which they supposedly did.
Let's see.
Another Marlins trade impending. I wonder what this one's going to be about.
Obviously, that's insane hyperbole,
But if we got bargains on the 2 big moves we made, why can't we then do a market rate deal to finish the job? 100%.
Yeah, it's ridiculous not to, like... Maybe clowns like me are the reason why Laz Montez is still on the Mariners and not being used as a package trade, because we all said, he's the next Yordan Alvarez!
Right.
So it could be my fault. I'll take the blame, guys, if we don't get Yandy Diaz because of that.
Let's see. Oh, the Angels got Mike Bowman. Sweet. Former Mariner.
And Giant.
Yep. That's so crazy. Well, we got JT Shirkaways. All right. Lucas Sims goes to...
Aaron Levine says, Jerry DePoto in his press conference coming up probably today, we took another step forward. Yeah, of course he's going to say that.
Yeah, that's fine. Interesting. Yeah, let's see.
21 minutes.
I think we're gonna see one. I think we're
You
gonna
think
see
so?
one.
Yeah, I do.
What do you think it's going to be?
It's probably gonna be I'm gonna say it's gonna be a league average bat from the right side. No, from the right
left side, because they want to platoon with Justin Turner, unless you want to put Luke Raley. But Luke Raley's kind of been eh.
So in Ireland, we call it soccer because we have a sport card called Gaelic football, I'm aware. And New York have a Gaelic football team that plays an all Ireland championship. And the final brings 82,000 people. Well, you know what? Hey, man, I have nothing against the Irish, man. I like the Irish. George Best was from Northern Ireland. You know, Conor McGregor's from Ireland, so that's cool. But I don't know Calum Broderick. That's his name, Calum.
Ken Rosenthal with a tweet. Mets acquiring reliever Huskar Brazoban from the Marlins. So that's what it was. Okay, great. It's funny because Mets were selling last year. They sold away Justin Verlander, and now they're contending once again, which is weird.
A reminder that the Mariners roster had issues because of their own decision making. More importantly, saying all prospects are on the table and really only meaning it for one player who wasn't truly available is not all prospects on the table. Yeah, that's true. Kevin Kirby wished the Mariners did more with bats. Could got Brylan De La Cruz or if easy. Yeah.
Anyone really at this point.
Another Jerry Dipoto disaster class. Wouldn't expect anything less from my goat. That's funny. Man. What's funny is, like, I'm okay. I think we're going to see one in the next 15 minutes. And, you know, Mariner fans are going to be like, oh. But if they don't, I'm okay with this. You know, it doesn't help that Julio is
Injured.
Yeah, it doesn't help that he's injured. But you know, when Julio gets back, this lineup looks a lot better. And when JP finally gets back, see, I would have liked an insurance at shortstop. But you know, that being said, you know, was the shortstop market? Was there anything in the shortstop market available? You know, you had an opportunity to get a guy like Ahmed Rosario. That would have been great. But got dealt somewhere else. But you know, yeah, this coming from Ty Dane Gonzalez. If Yandy doesn't get dealt, then I'm chilling. Would have been down for IKF. I don't know what that means though, given the shortstop. Isaiah Kiner Falefa, though, given the shortstop third base lead, 100%. This coming from angry Mariners fans at not Ty France. Well, I'm glad that they cleared that up. This is now the fourth time the Mariners front office puts their pencils down being a bat short. The 2023 offseason, the 2023 deadline, the 2024 offseason, and now the 2024 deadline. I would disagree because the Mariners did. Oh, fuck.
What?
The Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a deal to acquire outfielder Eloy Jimenez from the White Sox.
Oh boy.
Damn.
You gave me a heart attack. I was like, Baltimore got in on Yandy Diaz? I'll be like, no way.
Yeah, that's
Eloy Jimenez is really just well, he actually was okay last year.
yeah. Well, you know, that's the thing. It's like when
He's been injured though.
Yeah, so now
16 minutes.
This is coming from Mark Feinsand. Never say never until the deadline is passed, but it appears that the Rays will not be trading Yandy Diaz today, per sources.
Really? Where'd you see? If you can repost that somewhere.
Yeah, I will. There you go.
Let's see what you said. Or let's see what was said. Never say never until the trade deadline, but it appears that Yandy Diaz. Okay. Let's see what his credibility is.
Yeah, Mark said it. I don't think the Mariners deadline has been that bad. Yeah, I don't either, man. I don't. Like I'm
He's a senior reporter from New York. Or New Jersey, shall I say.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like I'm okay with it as well too. It hasn't been that bad. It's actually been probably the best deadline Seattle's had in years. And this is really the first time since the rebuild that we've actually had a very solid deadline. Like I wouldn't even say 2022 was that solid. I mean, Carlos Santana, Luis Castillo, okay. But they capped themselves and didn't add more. And we needed to add more in 2022, and it showed in the playoffs, right? And who knows, maybe this will come back to be the exact same thing where it shows in the playoffs and we don't, we were another bat missing. But I will say that, when you look at 2025 and you look at, with Rosarina and Julio locked into the outfield, that's one spot there, and depending on what's going on with how Jorge Polanco finishes, depends on depends on what they do at the second base position as well too. So I mean, it's one last thing that you have to worry about, but it's going to be interesting though, right? Because what happens if Justin Turner has a phenomenal finish to the season? Like, do the Mariners bring back do they bring back a 40-year-old DH? This coming from Erlen Bean. Dipoto in his press conference coming up probably today. We took another step forward.
Here's a random baseball question. Cut, bench, and start between Sandy Koufax, Randy Johnson, and Nolan Ryan. Who is your cut, bench, and start?
I am cutting Nolan Ryan.
Ooh.
And I am benching Sandy Koufax, and I'm starting Randy Johnson.
I want to hear a case.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give you the case. Randy Johnson is probably the best left-handed starting pitcher of the last 60, 70 years. That means that he's better than Tom Glavine, who is great. Don't get it twisted. I love Tom Glavine, but Randy Johnson from 1994 to 2004 ish was the best starting pitcher, like with the best left-handed starting pitcher in baseball. Period. How many Cy Youngs did he win from 1994 to 2004?
He won 5.
He won 5, including a World Series ring. Okay. Randy Johnson is a Hall of Famer, obviously.
What's crazy was nobody remembers that he was on the Yankees. And from what I remembered, he actually hated being in New York because the cameras were always on his face. And there was a time where he was like, no cameras.
So from 1990, this is the funniest thing. He wins his first Cy Young in 1995, obviously. And then he wins 4 straight from 1999 to 2002. And he was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-time All-Star. And the highest he ever finished was 6th in the MVP race in 1985. But anyway, Sandy Koufax and Randy Johnson pitched for 22 years. This dude was 303 and 166 with a career 3.29 ERA, and I think his strikeouts were something stupid.
48.75.
48.75. Okay, I like Nolan Ryan. I do. Okay, but Sandy Koufax. Let's look at this. Sandy Koufax was a 7-time All-Star, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, MVP, 3-time Triple Crown winner, 4-time World Series champion, 5-time ERA title, 2 World Series MVPs, and then Sandy Koufax retired after 12 years, but he was 165.87, a 2.76 ERA. And he struck out 23.96, and he retired because of shoulder trouble. Okay. And then you look at Nolan Ryan, who pitched forever, by the way. 8-time All-Star, played in this, won a 1969 World Series, 2-time ERA title, no Cy Young Award winner, no Cy Youngs. And yeah, it's like you look at his strikeouts. It's like, yeah, he's got strikeouts and he's got the no-hitters and all that good stuff. But here's the thing. He also walked 2,795 batters in his career. Like, people forget that Nolan Ryan walked a ton. But I will say this. Yes, like what makes Nolan Ryan great was the Nolan Ryan Express. And, you know, he had the no-hitters and all that stuff. But if you're asking me to cut one, Nolan Ryan gets cut because Sandy Koufax and Randy Johnson are far better. Far better. Okay.
Did you know that his
And
Nolan
Randy
Ryan's
Johnson's
final
misheard.
game, Nolan Ryan's
was
final game was against the Mariners, where he gave up a grand slam to a nobody.
That's funny. Let's see.
He only lasted 1 inning.
Yep. What was I going to say? All right, I got one for you. Okay.
Go ahead.
Cut, bench, start. Okay.
Yep.
Pedro Martinez. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Maddux. Roger Clemens.
I'm starting the Rocket.
You're starting the. Okay. See, now here's the thing.
I'm gonna cut Maddox. Sorry.
Oh, you're fucking high. Go ahead.
And I'm benching Pedro Martinez.
All right, give me your
My
reasoning
case.
right. First and foremost, why are you cutting Greg Maddux? Like, I'm cutting Roger Clemens.
You're cutting the Rocket?
What, dude? Pedro
couldn't get it done in 03.
So here's the thing. It's like, yeah, like I understand that when Rocket went to New York and he won World Series, I'm not denying that. And I still remember Game 4 of the ALCS in 2000. I was there. I saw it. He was an Al Martin
pieces.
He was an Al Martin double away from essentially a perfect game. I'll say this, okay? Pedro and now Pedro. Let me pull this up real quick. From 1996, okay? From 1996 to
2002.
2002, although he had 2 very good seasons with the New York Mets. Well, one very, very good season with the New York Mets. Pedro from like 1996 to 2000. Pedro Martinez won three All-Star, 3 Cy Young awards in that time. Finished second in the MVP. Okay. And was virtually unhittable. Okay. Was virtually unhittable. He did win a World Series in 2004. 3-time All-Star, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, 8-time All-Star, 5-time ERA title. He won the pitching triple crown. I'll say this, man. The Rocket. See, this is a tough one, right? Because this is my biggest thing, okay? Because Greg Maddux, we're talking about 3 Hall of Fame right-handed pitchers. Greg Maddux, 4-time Cy Young Award winner, 8-time All-Star, won a World Series in 95, 4-time ERA title. But here's the crazy thing, though. Greg Maddux was, this is the unbelievable thing. He was an 18-time Gold Glover. And he had the best 2-seam fastball I've ever seen. And he got a lot of love from the umpires, from the National League side of things. That's the thing.
Longevity.
It's like this is hard, right? Because I hear you when you're talking about Roger Clemens, right? But it's like, for me, it's like, what do I value? And Pedro's window for like unhittable was really only like a 4-year span. Because by the time he got to 2003, 2004, he was not 99-2000 Pedro. Like 99-2000 Pedro was the best 2 years of a right-handed pitcher. Because that dude was unhittable. But I would probably have to cut Pedro, bench Greg Maddux, and start Roger Clemens. But everybody knows that Roger Clemens was on the juice too, but I don't care about that either. So I would.
But there was one guy he was truly afraid of throughout his entire career.
Yeah, that's Edgar.
No, it was Mike Piazza.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
That's why he threw the ball at his head and tried to say, "Oh, it's just an accident. It's just slipped." No, it wasn't. And then he threw the bat, and he's like, "Oh, I thought it was the ball." But even then, why would you throw a ball at Mike Piazza anyway? He tried to say it was a ball, not the bat.
Oh, I know. That's the funniest thing ever. It's like, dude, you're tripping. And what's funny is I saw so they covered this in the Derek Jeter 30 for 30 series. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Chicago traded Tanner Banks to the Phillies.
Not my concern.
2 minutes.
2 minutes to see if the Mariners made any kind of a trade.
They're saying that he was saying that Jake Flaherty to the Dodgers. Damn. Interesting.
I'm 6 subscribers away from 2,000. So if anyone is there that is new to this channel, hit the subscribe button to get me to the big milestone number.
And he was saying, they were trying to say that, they were trying to say that, and Kevin Kiermaier is going to the Dodgers too. They were trying to sit there and say that, Clemens was trying to sit there and say that he thought it was the ball. And it's like, dude, you're holding a bat, dude. You're holding a bat. You ran a fastball in on Mike Piazza's hands, and he got the bat out in front of it and shattered his bat, and the barrel goes right to you. Okay. And you pick it up, and you know what you're holding. and you fling it right in front of them.
Imagine if it actually hit him. I think there would have been a riot. I think if the barrel of the bat hit Mike Piazza, there would have been an actual fight. It would have been ugly.
Yeah, I guess you can say that's a bit of good news for the Mariners that, Yandy Diaz is staying in Tampa. The Astros didn't have the horses, so I guess that's
but the Mariners were just too afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah, so we're now 1 minute away.
Either you can say that either the Rays just didn't want and didn't care for any of the bats because they sounded like they wanted pitching, or the Mariners were just too afraid to pull the trigger.
I don't like Colin O'Keefe, but he says, I imagine the sentiment down at the ballpark is we had a good deadline as anyone. We got the best position player moved. Why do Mariner fans always want more? The entire history of the organization would be why. It's pretty funny.
He's a typical Mariner homer to death.
Padres acquire Martin Perez.
Hey.
Yeah, so here we are at the 6 o'clock deadline, man. It's over.
This is it. It's over. Mariners, all they could settle for was a relief pitcher for today. So they got 2 relief pitchers and Randy Arozarena, and they unloaded Ryan Stanek. So I guess they got a plus out of the bullpen, but the offense, yes, they got Turner and they got Arozarena, but I think Yandy Diaz would have made it a home run of a trade deadline.
The Cardinals are sending outfielder Dylan Carlson to Tampa. Let's see. Let's see if there's any last
minute things.
Yankees to acquire Enil De Los Santos. So probably a last few minute deals coming through though. And as things stand, Mariners had one of the best deadlines in the American League. None of the big names got dealt unless you consider Arozarena and Paredes to be big names. And hey, the Mariners got one of them. Yeah, 100%. So here's how I view this. The Mariners roster as it currently stands is the type of roster they should have started 2023 with and then made more additions over the past 1.5 years. Now they finally have the roster they should have started 2023 with, but a year and a half late, 100%. Yeah, that's true. I look at this and I say that they had a good deadline. I don't think you can say that it wasn't. From a pure talent standpoint, the Mariners are improved. You can't sit there and say that this is the same old Mariners. You can't say that because they're clearly not. They went out there and were aggressive. Randy Arozarena is a very good bat to have, and they got him right at the right time as he started to peak and get into a season. They got Justin Turner at the right time as he was peaking and just starting to get into a season. So the Mariners get 2 right-handed bats as they're hitting the ball very well. That's exactly what you're looking for. That's the first thing. But they also got 2 bullpen arms. One of them a very good rental bullpen arm in Jimmy Garcia, who's already starting to pay dividends coming out of the Mariner bullpen. And they ended up with JT Chartreuse.
I'll look it up for you.
And he's going to play a pivotal role in this bullpen as well. So you know what? Check. The Mariners needed 2 bullpen arms. Check. The Mariners needed 2 bats. Check.
Chargois.
That's the thing. It's like, I said right at the beginning of this, the Mariners need at least 2 bats and 2 arms in their bullpen. And for me, that's, that satisfies me. Like, I understand that Mariner fans wanted them to go big game hunting. I understand. Vlad Jr., that would have been great. But the reality was that wasn't available. And I would probably assume that they wanted Yandy Diaz too. That wasn't available. And regardless of what Mariner fans think, like, this is exactly what you were looking for at the deadline, man. They got 2 bats and they got 2 arms. Like, they had a very well above average trading deadline. Like, I can't, like, next to the San Diego Padres, or like, we had a better trading deadline than the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Astros. Like, the only team that really had a very, very good trading deadline was, I thought the Indians had a good deadline. I thought the Royals had a pretty solid deadline too.
Arizona got a nice pickup out of Josh Bell for cheap.
Yeah, they got a pretty good one too. So the way I look at this is like, you know, when I look at this today, Arizona added Josh Bell. Atlanta added Luke Jackson, Jorge Soler. Baltimore had a pretty good deadline. Eloy Jimenez, Trevor Rogers. You know, then you look down the line and it's like, well, you know, Cleveland had a pretty good one. Detroit got some good prospects. Houston ended up with only Caleb Ferguson. Kansas City had a good one. You know, Miami probably, but, you know, Miami.
They fire sailed it. They 98 it.
But, you know, when you look at Miami, they probably had the best deadline of all because the prospect haul that they got. Like, when I'm looking at this, Miami ends up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like 8 very good prospects at age 23 or younger. I mean, that was pretty good. I thought the Mets did okay. You know, the A's did okay, but for the most part, like, I thought, you know, and Pittsburgh did okay too.
They could have gotten something out of Brent Rooker, though.
In the AL West, when you look at Texas with Andrew Chafin, and you look at Houston with Caleb Ferguson, you know, when you look at what the Mariners did, they had the best deadline in the division. Far and away. Like, you can't be mad at this. Like, this was a well above average deadline for the Seattle Mariners. For the Seattle Mariners that
for
have
their
made
level.
a history. Yeah, for who have made a history of the last time a Mariners deadline swung this type of capital
Hype?
coming in
Okay.
was what, 95. Well, that was the last time where we ended up with this type of volume coming in. Was 95.
Yeah, let's take a look at. Let's compare all the playoff years that they did. 95, Vince Coleman and Andy Benes. 97 was Heathcliff Slocum, Paul Spoljaric, and Mike Timlin. Unfortunately, those did not work out. 2000 was Al Martin. 2014 was Chris Denorfia and Austin Jackson. 2022 was... Well, actually, no, Chris Denorfia and Austin Jackson don't count because those weren't playoff years. 2022 was Luis Castillo, and I still thought... I remember in 2022, I still thought the Mariners were below the average on that trade deadline. And now 24, they got Randy Arozarena, Jimmy Garcia, and JT. Like, I know, like, as much as I'm still disappointed the Mariners didn't get Yandy Diaz or Vlad Jr. or whoever they should have gotten, it still does have potential to be better than 95.
Yeah.
I mean, we arguably got more impact. Like 95, like we can say that, like Vince Coleman and Andy Benes, they both could have been disasters in that trade. It still could have been a disaster, but luckily, Mariners got them at the right time, so they did get a little bit lucky in 95. I still think the best trade deadline other than 95 was 96, but unfortunately, they just didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
So it kind of doesn't count. You can't really, like, would you even? You wouldn't count trade deadlines if they didn't make the playoffs. Like the one, let's say like they bought at the trade deadline, but then they didn't make the playoffs. Would you not count that as a ranking for trade deadline rankings?
No,
like 96 had great 96. All right. Well, okay. We'll do the years that they tried. You have to say it was a good deadline or a bad deadline. Like 95, we said it was a good deadline. 96 was when they got Jamie Moyer, Terry Mulholland, Dave Hollins, and Mark Whitten. I mean, we could all agree that was a good deadline for them. It was enough to make a late season drive. 97 was for Heathcliff Slocum.
Heathcliff Slocum.
and then Paul Spoljaric and Mike Timlin. Yes, it was bad if you look at it in hindsight, but it at least somewhat stabilized the bullpen for 97 to not have a complete meltdown, because that also could have happened because the Angels were right on their tail. Yeah. And then 2000 was Al Martin. I would say it was a bad trade deadline because they could have gotten Juan Gonzalez, and then Al Martin did nothing. But considering value, Mariners gave up nothing to get Al Martin. They gave up Steve Sinclair or something, and it was Tom Davey and John Mabry to get Al Martin. So
yeah, John Mabry was awesome though.
2000, and then they didn't, and then 2006 was like they were trying to buy, but they sucked. No, 2006. 2006 was when they traded away Eduardo. They traded Asdrubal Cabrera for Eduardo Perez, bad. And then Shin-Soo Choo for Ben Broussard. That was obviously probably their worst buying trade deadline I've ever seen. Then years later goes to 2014 when they got Austin Jackson.
Can you even consider that a buy, trading away Shin-Soo Choo?
For Bavasi's level, it was, because the Mariners were actually in contention for the American League West that year, strangely.
Ish.
They were still hanging with 3 games back until mid-August. So I will still count it as a buy, unfortunately. 2014 was Austin Jackson and Chris Denorfia. I would say that was below average still. And then 22 was Luis Castillo. And now 24, we can say that Mariners did buy to get Randy Arozarena and 2 solid bullpen pitchers, and hopefully they will pan out, because I would think that Jimmy Garcia and JT are going to be more in the top tier for the bullpen. So that makes it much easier for Andres Munoz and Gregory Santos. And assuming we can have Gregory Santos back, Garcia and JT can at least make up somewhat for the loss of Matt Brash. And I did like that the Mariners did get another bullpen arm on top of Garcia, because Stanek was awful. And knowing that when the Mariners traded him, I was like, okay, great, we got rid of someone that sucked, even though I was not exactly 100% for it, because I was thinking, oh, the depth. But Mariners made up for it. And Stanek sucks now.
By the way, Mark Canha did indeed get traded today from Detroit to the San Francisco Giants. That's interesting.
The Reds still coming up with more last-minute trades.
The Reds have traded Austin Slater to the Orioles.
So these are all the last-minute fringe trades that are being made.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I think that yeah, it's funny. It's like I love all these negative Mariner fans who are saying that they still refuse to prove to fans that they're going all in. It sounded like it looked like they did a pretty good job of showing that, because I like Diamondbacks acquired Dylan Floro. Luis Garcia is headed from the Angels to the Red Sox. Interesting.
I just tweeted not getting Yandy Diaz and adding one more bat. This is possibly the best trade deadline since 1995.
Yeah, this is, oh yeah, by the way, 0 top 100 prospects in Baseball America were traded. Yeah. The way that I look at it is, it's funny. Somebody says the Astros are done. Their deadline was Yusei Kikuchi and Caleb Ferguson. They really overcame a 10-game deficit in the division just to do this at the deadline. Bam.
I still wouldn't laugh at that.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense though. That no top 100 prospects were traded. That's interesting.
I was kind of surprised it didn't happen though.
Yeah, I know. I saw your tweet about not getting Yandy, but
they still got a Arozarena, which none of us expected.
This was, for me, this has that potential. But with the way I look at it, it's like, man, you know, from just quality in when we were coming into July and you and I were talking about what we're looking for. You know, I said at least 2 bats and 2 arms. They got it, man. They got it. And I think the biggest steal for the Mariners was Jonathan Clase for Jimmy Garcia. That in itself was really the fleecing. I actually think that the Rays ended up better. Got the better end of the deal for Randy Arozarena because I think those Aiden Smith and
Brody,
Brody are going to be major leaguers. But I will say that you got the big bat. You got the big bat. Randy Arozarena is a big bat, and he's a very good playoff bat too. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, remember last going into 2023. The big hype was Jorge Soler, or maybe it was this offseason. We were wondering if the Mariners were going to sign Jorge Soler, and one of the big things was that not only is Jorge Soler kind of a right-handed power bat, but he's also a pretty good playoff bat too. Well, Randy Arozarena is an unbelievable playoff bat, right? So, to me, that was kind of the big game hunting. That was the big name that they got. Justin Turner is just a solid contributor. Even at 39, last year he's coming off a 20-something home run campaign last year. I know he's only got 6 this year, but it's not unreal to think that he can finish with 15. For a dude who's 39, like if he ends up with like 1560 and he's hitting like 280 by the end of the year, that was solid, man. That was solid.
Wait, Justin Turner?
Yeah, like if he finishes the season from the time he starts his Mariner tenure today to the end of the season, in his Mariner time, if he finishes like 280 with like a 330 OBP and he's slugging 450 with a 7-something OPS with like 8 home runs or 9 home runs and whatever, 20 RBIs, 30 RBIs, or whatever the case may be, that's a solid addition.
But I do have advices for Randy Arozarena and Justin Turner. Whatever Scott Service and the analytics geeks say to you, do not listen to them. Just say, hey, let me do my job and you do yours. Let me be me. Do not give me this. Don't give me these overcomplicated stats that I don't need to hear. Because it has clearly we can all agree that it has kind of hurt these players mentally when they have to think about numbers 24/7. Like maybe it worked with Moneyball because all the Oakland players had like much better plate discipline than what the Mariners have. Mariners have a bunch of chasers, so there's no point giving these boys numbers. Let them play to their strengths and not on their minds.
That's funny. Don't listen to the analytics department of the Mariners. Don't let them tell you about numbers.
Now, before we take off, because it looks like we're getting to that time, and it's unlikely I'm going to be able to do a Mariners game because I have a softball game tonight, and there is no word of that canceling, even with the rain. But let's take a look at and see what the starting lineup could be. So we're going to do it by positional, obviously. Okay. Catcher, it's obviously going to be Cal Raleigh.
Backup is going to be Mitch Garver. Okay.
Mitch Garver, yep. First baseman, it's going to be like Ty France. No, not Ty France. Just kidding.
Versus lefties, it's going to be Luke Raley versus righties. Luke Raley versus lefties. Justin Turner. Okay. DH is going to be Justin Turner. Okay.
DH is going to be like Turner, Garver, and Haniger combo. Second base is going to be Polanco.
No. Justin Turner's taking all the DH at bats. If there's a righty on the hill, and Raley is playing at first base, Justin Turner's taking all the DH at bats. Second base is going to be Polanco.
Wait, so who's going to play? Not that I like the platoon, but who's going to platoon with Luke Raley then?
At first base, it's going to be like versus righties. Luke Raley will play first base. He's the left-handed bat. Versus lefties, it's going to be Justin Turner at first base.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
And then you can conceivably give Garver some at bats, like when if Turner's playing first base, then you can conceive like tonight he's playing first base, right? So you can conceivably get Garver into the lineup if you wanna do that versus the matchups. Yeah. So there you go. So all right. So continue.
All right. Shortstop is JP when healthy. Unfortunately, because he's not good anymore.
I wouldn't say that. He's just injured right now. So when he gets back September, he'll be at shortstop. Yeah.
Third base is Rojas.
Yeah.
Left field is Randy Arozarena.
Yep.
Center field is Julio.
Yep.
Right field is going to be between Victor Robles and Mitch Haniger.
Yep.
And
you're probably going to play Victor Robles.
And that means Canzone is probably going to be stuck in the minor leagues as he should. He's got to work on that bat. There's not room for him.
Well, let's see, because your bench right now is your bench. So when JP comes back, your bench is going to be Garver. It's going to be Garver. So let's see, Garver, Dylan Moore, Mitch Haniger, and yeah, I can see how they keep Dom Canzone on the big league roster as a left-handed bat off the bench. I can see that.
Maybe that'll take pressure off of him.
You know, he's probably only going to start once a week. He's going to get pitch hitting duties. So late in the game when they need a left-handed bat, you can use him.
But hey, when he puts the barrel on the ball, it goes. But he has to do that.
So flick of the switch is like, I hope they don't try to stick Crawford back at the leadoff spot.
Robles as a leadoff hitter and maybe Crawford in the downs.
I would think JP Crawford is going to be hitting ninth. You can either conceivably see Victor Robles, or you might even can make a case for Justin Turner as well too. Although
as a leadoff hitter.
That's not going to happen. They're going to play him down. But yeah, it's probably going to be Victor Robles. The problem with a guy like Josh Rojas is like he's not really hitting at a clip where you want him as the leadoff guy. But yeah, it's going to be probably Victor Robles. That's the problem, right? That's kind of why you wanted. That's kind of why you wanted to try to bring in another shortstop right now. You know what I mean? To strengthen your bench, especially when JP comes back. In the meantime, like that's why I was talking about Ahmed Rosario, because he makes contact, doesn't walk a lot, doesn't strike out a lot. He just puts the ball in play.
I think
what I think the Mariners missed.
Now, after this trade deadline, do you feel more confident than you probably did before the Randy Arozarena trade for a running in the American League West?
Yes, I do. One of the things that even when the Mariners were 10 games up, like this lineup was just a shit sandwich. It was bad.
Unsustainable.
It was like, they would scrape together 3 runs and win a ball game, or they would win a one-run game at home.
Especially against the White Sox. They won on skin of their teeth on all of them.
Yeah, except for this last 3-game series, it looks like they kind of swept them comfortably. But I will say that, last night was just one of those outings. It just is what it is. But I will say that, now, like, especially when Julio comes back, and now you have a 2 through 5 in your lineup that actually looks dangerous. That was the biggest problem. Like this entire season, like there was never a time where you looked at the Mariners lineup and said, this is a dangerous lineup. But now it's going to be like Julio, Arozarena, Cal Raleigh, and Justin Turner. Like that, there's some danger in that. You know what I mean? And it strengthens the latter part of the lineup as well too. It stretches out your lineup, and that's exactly what you kind of want in this situation. Having that 1-2 punch of Julio and Randy Arozarena
could be deadly.
And it also is going to be beneficial for Cal too, because now there's a little lineup protection in there with Justin Turner. So that's going to help some, especially if Justin Turner is just putting balls in play and getting on base. and driving in some runs, it's going to pay dividends.
Couple things I wanted to say before we go was the best way to explain the 10-game lead was a perfect example of a volatile stock market. Like when the Mariners were there, that's exactly when you wanted to sell on them. And you would have been correct. It would have been like selling Tesla, because Tesla went from like 200 all the way up to like 260, and now they're like at 210. So that's exactly what it pretty much was. And as for Boston, I kind of figured that they were going to have a difficult game, because considering that a lot of roster changes happened and that they had to fly from Chicago to Boston. I'm not saying that's a good excuse or anything, but usually when you're in between road trips, something always usually doesn't go well when you're going from one place to another.
Sorry, the Orioles also got Gregory Soto from the Phillies. Wow. That's kind of
Baltimore was very aggressive today, along with the Padres.
Yep.
Compared to the Mariners, like the Mariners were not as aggressive. I mean, Mariners felt like they got what they needed. Still concerned about that.
JD Davis goes to the Rays.
Wait, JD Davis, the one who the Mariners should have got for third base in the free agent market,
and he ended up in
in Tampa. You said?
Yeah, he ended up with the A's, and now he's on his way to Tampa. Yeah.
How does that make any sense now that Tampa's kind of on a fire sale? I wonder if they're going to use him as a trade bait for the future.
He's going to play third base for the rest of the year. He's only on a 1-year deal.
I guess I got to put some kind of butts in the seats.
It's funny. They traded Isaac Paredes and they traded Randy Arozarena, and people just assume they're not going to play Tampa Bay Ray ball. Like, Tampa's still a pretty good team. Like, I don't. It's like, yeah, they didn't have the year they had last year, but they're still 2 games above 500.
Yeah.
I don't think that Tampa got worse. I think Tampa's still going to be Tampa. Yeah, I see they finally moved Polanco out of the cleanup spot. Yeah, although Polanco's been on the heater though.
Yeah, I gotta before we even go. I know I've been saying that a ton today, but I gotta see how Polanco's been doing in the second half, because he has been doing a little bit better. That is evident. Mm-hmm. And I'll see if it is true for sure. Since the start, he's at 270 with a 317 OBP, 4 home runs. So at least he's been slugging the ball. He has a 649 slugging percentage. So that says a lot.
Yeah. When I look at, let's look at his, so the last 7 days, he's hitting 273 with a 320 OBP, 727 slugging, and an OPS of 1.047, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs. Yeah, I mean, he's been hitting, man. He's been doing good. Yeah. Second half so far, batting 270, 317 OBP, slugging 649, 966 OPS, OPS plus of 156, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 1 stolen base, 8 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 doubles, no triples. So he's far and away better than he was. He's far and away better than he was to start the season. So yeah, he's been on a heater, man.
Well, I think we've done as much as we possibly could. For anyone that was part of this show, I definitely appreciate everyone that was a part of the show and bearing with me for about 5 hours and 30 minutes. I think this is the new record of the length of a show. I don't think I've ever gone 5 hours on my butt before.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was needed, man. I mean, it's a trading deadline, so you gotta I mean, just in case there was big news today.
This is by far the new record. By far. Not even close. Like,
but that
by
being
2
said,
hours.
But that being said, I can't be mad with this deadline. This was a very good deadline, man.
We can say as much as I was greedy for that first baseman, Vlad Jr., but they certainly didn't sell. I will say that.
Yeah. One of the things that, when you look at the scope of incoming, this has potential to be like the best deadline in team history. Like it has that much impact where it could definitely have that impact. And we're not necessarily going to know until Julio gets back. But once he gets back,
damage could be done. And JP Crawford.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, what I like about this is like you bring in fresh blood into the clubhouse, right? Like this looks and feels different since Randy Arozarena came into our clubhouse. So you like it's probably going to have some type of trickle down effect.
And hopefully Leo Rivas, until JP Crawford is back, hopefully he can stall that time, because right now he's at a 273 average with a 273 OBP. So hopefully he can stall time.
It's been limited time, and you just hope that he can tread water at the position, because again, you don't want Dylan Moore playing every day.
You don't.
So, this is I guess you can say this is Leo Rivas's tryout, I guess you can say, and you just kind of hope that he treads water. He's a better defender. I think he's a better defender at shortstop than Dylan Moore.
JP or Dylan Moore, yeah. I think if Dylan Moore, the only way I can see Cole Young go up is if we saw injuries of Dylan Moore and like Leo Rivas. Then I think that would trigger like, okay, fine, we have to do this because we don't have a choice kind of thing. Or they would sign someone from the street again.
If there's somebody that, if there's a DFA candidate at shortstop that's available,
they would do that before calling up Cole Young.
Yeah, I would think that you have to be 100% sure that Young is ready to go, and I don't think they feel that way at all.
No, it didn't seem like it. Like when we looked at his numbers, they weren't exactly too eye-popping.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like that's why Leo Rivas is here. So let him play, and we'll see what he has. And you can always bounce back. Like if there's a lefty on the hill, then yeah, you can play Dylan Moore at short. But let Leo Rivas take some swings, and we'll see how it plays. Outside of that, we're a month away from JP Crawford potentially coming back. So that's why it was so imperative that the Mariners traded for a shortstop. Once he went down and your options were limited, that was something that you had to at least, even if it's like even if it is like a mid-range bat, like there's a reason why I was throwing the name Andy Ibanez out there, because he can play short and he crushes left-handed pitching. And that's a guy that makes a tremendous amount of sense. But I know like some fans were calling for Jose Caballero, but it's like
there's no point.
Right. There's no point.
Well, that's going to do it. And once again, thank you for being on this show. And hopefully the Mariners can rebound with a victory tonight. Hopefully Justin Turner makes that instant impact. Everyone have a good night, and go Mariners.
Go M's.